The moment Ethan Cole's laptop lit up that billion-dollar boardroom screen, every executive in the room knew someone's career was about to die. Victoria Whitmore, 30 years old, CEO of a global empire, untouchable, had just publicly humiliated the single father sitting across from her. She'd questioned his judgment, dismissed his warnings, and made damn sure everyone knew he ranked below her. What she didn't know, Ethan had evidence that would burn her deal to ashes. This is the story of how one exhausted dad with a 7-year-old daughter waiting outside took down an empire with nothing but the truth. Stay until the end, hit that like button, and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The fluorescent lights in Ethan Cole's apartment flickered at 5:47 a.m., exactly 13 minutes before his alarm was supposed to go off. He was already awake anyway, staring at the ceiling, running numbers in his head for the third time that night. Sophie's asthma medication, $218. Due in 6 days. Rent. First of the month, $1,100 even. 12 days away. Car insurance, lapsed. Again. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He let it ring through to voicemail, then played it back immediately because unknown numbers at 5:47 a.m. meant something had broken somewhere. Mr. Cole, this is Principal Anderson from Riverside Elementary. I'm calling to inform you that due to an emergency facilities issue, the school will be closed today. We apologize for the short notice. Ethan closed his eyes. Today. Of all the goddamn days. In exactly 4 hours and 26 minutes, the biggest corporate signing in Whitmore Global's history would begin. International investors, board members, legal teams from 3 countries, and Ethan, senior risk analyst, the guy nobody remembered existed until something went catastrophically wrong, had spent the last 72 hours trying to convince someone, anyone, that the contract they were about to sign had a flaw buried so deep it would take a financial earthquake to expose it. And now he had to bring his 7-year-old daughter to work. Sophie, honey, he knocked gently on her bedroom door. Change of plans today. She appeared in the doorway clutching Mr. Hopscotch, the stuffed rabbit she'd had since she was 2. One ear was sewn back on with blue thread because Ethan couldn't find white, and Sophie said it made him look like a pirate. Is it a good change or a bad change? She'd gotten good at reading his face. It's a different change. You're coming to work with Daddy today. Her eyes went wide. The tall building? With the elevators that go whoosh? That's the one. Can I bring Mr. Hopscotch? Mr. Hopscotch can come, but you have to promise me something. Okay. Today's a really big day for Daddy's company. Lots of important people. I need you to be super quiet and stay exactly where I put you. Can you do that? Sophie nodded seriously. Like a ninja. Like a ninja. 20 minutes later, they were in his 2012 Honda Civic with the cracked windshield and the check engine light that had been on since March. Sophie sat in her booster seat humming something she'd learned in music class while Ethan merged onto the highway toward downtown. His phone buzzed again. Jennifer from HR. Meeting scheduled tomorrow, 9 a.m., mandatory attendance. J. No context, no subject, just mandatory. Ethan's jaw tightened. He deleted the message and kept driving. Whitmore Global's headquarters rose 47 stories above the city like a glass monument to money and power. Ethan had worked there for 6 years. He knew exactly 3 executives by name, and none of them knew his. Security waved him through at 7:18 a.m. He held Sophie's hand as they crossed the marble lobby toward the elevators. Daddy, why is everything so shiny? Because the people who work here think shiny means important. Is that true? Not even a little bit. They took the elevator to the 34th floor. Risk management occupied half the floor. A maze of cubicles and glass-walled offices, where people like Ethan spent their days finding holes in deals so executives could pretend they'd thought of the solutions themselves. His desk sat in the corner. No window. No nameplate. Just a computer, 2 monitors, and a coffee mug Sophie had painted for him that said, World's okayest dad. Okay, kiddo, you're gonna sit right here. He pulled over an extra chair and set her up with her backpack. I packed your tablet. Headphones stay on. And if you need me, I tap your shoulder. I know, Daddy. He kissed the top of her head. You're the best. I know that too. Ethan logged into his system and pulled up the contract analysis he'd been fighting about all week. The Meridian International deal. $12 billion in infrastructure development across 4 countries. Ports, logistics networks, supply chain integration. On paper, it looked clean, profitable, low risk. But Ethan had found the crack. Buried in Section 14.7, subsection C, someone had quietly altered the overlapping port failure clause. The original language protected Whitmore Global if multiple critical ports went offline simultaneously due to natural disasters or political unrest. Standard coverage. Smart coverage. The new language? It only protected them if the failures happened independently within a 14-day window. Whoever rewrote it had gambled that multiple catastrophic port failures wouldn't happen close enough together to matter. Ethan had run the scenario models, climate projections, political instability indices, shipping route vulnerabilities. The odds weren't good. They were terrible. And if he was right, if simultaneous disruptions hit just 3 of the major ports covered in the agreement, Whitmore Global would be exposed to losses exceeding $700 million. He'd sent the analysis to his department head on Monday, forwarded it to legal on Tuesday. Wednesday, he'd requested a meeting with Richard Hale, the chief strategy officer who'd personally overseen the contract negotiations. Thursday morning, Richard's assistant had emailed back. Mr. Hale has reviewed your concerns and determined they fall outside the scope of immediate risk. The signing will proceed as scheduled. Now it was Friday. The signing started in 2 hours and 40 minutes, and Ethan was out of moves. Mr. Cole? He looked up. Jennifer from HR stood beside his cubicle wearing the expression people wore when they were about to ruin your day and wanted you to know they didn't enjoy it. Good morning, Jennifer. We need to talk about tomorrow's meeting. Can it wait? I'm prepping materials for... It really can't. Her eyes flicked to Sophie, who was absorbed in her tablet with her headphones on. Is that your daughter? School closure, emergency. I see. Jennifer's tone suggested she saw a lot more than that. The meeting tomorrow. It's regarding your performance review and some concerns that have been raised about your recent judgment calls. Ethan felt something cold settle in his chest. Concerns. I can't discuss specifics right now, but I wanted to give you a heads up. Bring documentation of your recent project work. Be prepared to discuss your decision-making process. Jennifer, if this is about the Meridian contract, I really can't say more. She glanced at Sophie again. Maybe you should consider making alternative arrangements for Monday, just in case. She walked away before he could respond. Sophie pulled one headphone off. Who was that lady? Nobody important, sweetheart. She looked mean. She's just doing her job. Her job is being mean? Ethan almost laughed. Sometimes it feels that way. At 8:30, his desk phone rang. Internal extension, executive floor. Cole speaking. Mr. Cole, this is Amanda from Miss Whitmore's office. The CEO would like you to attend the Meridian signing ceremony at 10 o'clock. Conference room A, 39th floor. Ethan's hand tightened on the phone. I wasn't on the attendance list. You are now. Ms. Whitmore personally requested your presence. The line went dead. Sophie looked up at him. Daddy, your face went weird. Did it? Yeah, like when you found that spider in the bathroom. Ethan took a slow breath. Victoria Whitmore wanted him in the room. The woman who'd never spoken directly to him in 6 years. The CEO who'd inherited a billion-dollar empire at 28 and spent the last 2 years proving to everyone, her board, her investors, her own father, that she deserved it. She wanted him there. Either she'd actually read his analysis and reconsidered, or someone wanted to watch him fall apart in front of the people who mattered. At 9:45, Ethan stood outside conference room A with Sophie's hand in his. The room beyond the glass walls was already filling up. Men in suits that cost more than Ethan's monthly salary. Women in jewelry that could pay Sophie's medical bills for a year. Executives, lawyers, translators. The Meridian International team sat on one side of the massive table, Whitmore Global's leadership on the other, and at the head of the table sat Victoria Whitmore. She was younger than most of the men around her, but she didn't look it. Everything about her, the sharp black suit, the severe bun, the way she held her pen like a weapon, screamed control. Authority. Don't fucking test me. She was terrifying. Daddy, I can't go in there. I know, baby. You're going to sit right here. There was a small seating area outside the conference room. Ethan settled Sophie into a chair with her tablet and Mr. Hopscotch. Remember, ninja quiet. I know. If you need me, you're right there. She pointed through the glass. That's my girl? Ethan straightened his tie, the only tie he owned, the one with the small stain near the bottom he'd tried to cover with a Sharpie, and walked into the room. Nobody looked at him. He found an empty seat near the back, away from the main table. Support staff territory. The invisible people. Richard Hale sat directly across from Victoria, looking relaxed and confident. Mid-50s, silver hair, the kind of smile that made you think of shark fins. He'd been with Whitmore Global for 15 years, survived 3 CEOs. People said he was the real power behind the throne. He caught Ethan's eye, and his smile widened slightly. Ethan looked away. At exactly 10 o'clock, Victoria stood. Good morning. On behalf of Whitmore Global, I want to thank our partners from Meridian International for their patience and collaboration throughout this process. Today marks a significant milestone not just for our companies, but for global infrastructure development. Her voice was measured, professional, but Ethan could hear something underneath it. Pressure. The weight of proving herself to the room. One of the Meridian executives, a severe-looking woman with silver glasses, raised her hand slightly. Before we proceed, I'd like to revisit some of the operational risk scenarios we discussed last month, specifically regarding overlapping disruption events. Victoria didn't hesitate. Our risk management team has thoroughly analyzed those scenarios. The probability of simultaneous failures across multiple critical ports is statistically negligible. Negligible isn't zero. Of course not. But the protective mechanisms built into the agreement provide adequate coverage for any realistic scenario. The Meridian executive glanced at her notes. I'm looking at section 14.7, subsection C. The revised language seems to narrow the protection window significantly. Victoria's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. The revision was made to reflect more accurate risk modeling. Our chief strategy officer can speak to the specifics. Richard Hale leaned forward smoothly. The original language was overly broad. It would have protected against scenarios so unlikely they bordered on fantasy. We tightened the parameters to reflect real-world probability. It's actually a sign of fiscal responsibility. Another executive spoke up, one of Whitmore Global's own board members. What happens if the models are wrong? They're not wrong, Richard said. We've run every scenario. The numbers don't lie. Ethan's hands were shaking. He pressed them flat against his thighs. The numbers did lie. Or rather, someone had made them lie. Victoria was still talking, walking through contingency plans and backup protocols, but Ethan could see the investors weren't convinced. They were polite, professional. But doubt had entered the room. One of them, a younger man with a British accent, spoke carefully. Perhaps we could hear from your risk analysis team directly, someone who's worked on the detailed modeling. Victoria's eyes swept the room, landed on Ethan. Mr. Cole is our senior risk analyst on this project. He's prepared supporting materials. Every head in the room turned toward him. Ethan stood slowly. He could feel Richard Hale's eyes on him like a physical weight. Thank you, Ms. Whitmore. His voice came out steady. He was surprised. I've prepared a detailed breakdown of the risk scenarios for your review. He moved to the front of the room, pulling out his laptop. As he passed Victoria, she spoke quietly. Keep it brief, and don't make me regret this. It wasn't a request. Ethan connected his laptop to the display screen. His hands were still shaking, but his mind was clear. He had a choice. Keep his mouth shut. Show them the sanitized version of the analysis, the one that made everything look safe and manageable and perfectly fine. Keep his job. Keep his daughter's insurance. Keep the fragile stability he'd fought 6 years to build. Or tell the truth. He pulled up the first slide. Section 14.7, subsection C. Original language versus revised. The revision to the overlapping failure clause introduces a vulnerability that our initial models didn't account for. Richard Hale's voice cut through the room. Mr. Cole, we've already addressed this. The probability analysis is based on historical data that doesn't reflect current climate volatility or geopolitical instability. Ethan advanced to the next slide. 3 maps showing major port locations, weather pattern shifts, and political tension zones. When you cross-reference these factors, the likelihood of overlapping disruptions increases significantly. Significantly how? The British investor leaned forward. Ethan pulled up the financial models. If 3 critical ports fail within the 14-day window specified in the revised clause, Whitmore Global's exposure could exceed $700 million. The room went completely silent. Victoria's voice was ice. Mr. Cole, you're presenting worst-case scenarios as probable outcomes. I'm presenting scenarios our models show have a 12% probability of occurring within the contract's first 3 years. 12% is acceptable risk. Not when the original clause protected us at 0 additional cost. Richard Hales stood up. This is exactly the kind of excessive caution that stalls progress. We can't build a global infrastructure network if we're paralyzed by every unlikely scenario. Ethan met his eyes. Someone changed this clause 3 days ago. After final legal review, after board approval. It wasn't in the version presented to Meridian International last week. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Victoria's face went very still. What are you saying? I'm saying someone altered the contract after it was approved. And I'm saying I sent warnings about this to legal, to my department head, and to Mr. Hale's office. 3 times. And I was told my concerns fell outside the scope of immediate risk. Richard's expression didn't change, but his knuckles went white on the table edge. One of the Meridian executives spoke up. Do you have documentation of these warnings? Ethan pulled up his email records, sent messages, timestamps, read receipts. Monday, 2:47 p.m. Urgent risk assessment required for revised port failure clause. Tuesday, 9:23 a.m. Following up on risk concerns. Please review attached analysis before signing. Wednesday, 4:15 p.m. Final warning. Section 14.7. See vulnerability. Strongly recommend reverting to original language. Every message marked as read. None answered. Victoria stood slowly. Her face was perfectly composed, but Ethan could see fury building behind her eyes. Mr. Cole, you're making serious accusations. I'm presenting facts. You're disrupting a billion-dollar negotiation because you think you know better than our entire executive team. I'm trying to protect this company from a $700 million loss. Your job is risk analysis, not strategic decision-making. Her voice was sharp enough to cut. You don't have the authority or the perspective to understand why certain changes are made. Then help me understand why someone buried a catastrophic vulnerability in our largest contract of the year. Richard Hale's voice was smooth as poison. Ms. Whitmore, I think Mr. Cole is clearly under significant personal stress. Perhaps he should take some time to... I'm not under stress. I'm underinformed. Someone changed this contract and didn't tell anyone why. Victoria's eyes narrowed. You're out of line. Maybe, but I'm not wrong. The British investor cleared his throat. Ms. Whitmore, I think we need to take a brief recess. These are serious concerns. Victoria's jaw tightened. Ethan could see her calculating. The deal, her reputation, the investors watching to see if she could control her own company. She turned to Ethan, and when she spoke, her voice carried through the entire room. Mr. Cole, I appreciate your diligence, but you're a single father who brought his child to work today because you couldn't arrange proper care. Maybe you're not thinking as clearly as you believe you are. Maybe you're distracted by personal issues that are affecting your professional judgment. The words hit like a physical blow. Every executive in the room looked away, embarrassed for him, embarrassed for themselves. Outside the glass wall, Sophie sat with Mr. Hopscotch in her lap, completely unaware that her father had just been destroyed in front of the people who controlled his future. Ethan stood very still. He could walk out, apologize, admit he'd overstepped, save his job, or he could finish what he'd started. He looked at Victoria, then at Richard, then at the investors who were watching everything very carefully. You're right, he said quietly. I am a single father. I did bring my daughter to work today. And yes, I'm thinking about her right now. I'm thinking about her health insurance, which comes from this job. I'm thinking about her rent and her medication and her future. I'm thinking about all of that. He turned back to the screen. And I'm also thinking about the fact that someone in this room altered a contract to make a deal close faster, and they're hoping nobody notices until it's too late. I'm thinking that my daughter deserves a father who tells the truth even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. He pulled up the final document. Contract revision logs, digital signatures, timestamps. The clause was changed at 11:47 p.m. on Tuesday night, after business hours. The modification was made from an executive-level account and approved through emergency authorization protocols. He highlighted the authorization signature. Richard Hales. The room erupted. Meridian executives started talking rapidly among themselves. Whitmore Global's board members turned on Richard with questions that sounded like accusations. Legal teams reached for phones. Richard stood slowly, and for the first time his composure cracked. This is absurd. I authorized a routine technical adjustment. At midnight? Without legal review? The Meridian CEO cut him off. That's not routine. Victoria was staring at the screen like she couldn't process what she was seeing. Richard, what the hell did you do? I made a strategic decision to streamline. You modified a billion-dollar contract without board approval. I have the authority to make executive adjustments. Not to liability clauses, not without disclosure. The British investor stood up. Ms. Whitmore, we need to suspend this signing immediately. Victoria looked at Ethan, really looked at him, and for just a second he saw something crack in her perfect armor. Shame. Then the conference room door opened. Sophie stood in the doorway, clutching Mr. Hopscotch, looking small and scared and completely out of place. Daddy? Her voice was tiny. Can we go eat now? You said we'd eat after the meeting. Every person in that billion-dollar room turned to look at the 7-year-old girl in light-up sneakers holding a stuffed rabbit with a pirate ear, and Ethan realized they were finally seeing him, not as an analyst, not as a problem, not as the single father too distracted to think clearly, as a person carrying the weight of everything alone. He walked across the room, knelt down beside Sophie, and spoke gently. Hey, baby, 5 more minutes, okay? Then we'll get pizza. The good pizza? The good pizza. Okay. She looked past him at all the important people. Are you in trouble? I don't know yet. Did you tell the truth? Yeah, sweetheart, I did. Then you're not in trouble. She said it like it was the simplest thing in the world. Telling the truth is good. She went back to her chair outside. When Ethan turned around, Victoria was standing. The signing is suspended pending a full internal investigation. Richard, you're relieved of your duties effective immediately. Security will escort you out. Richard's face went purple. You can't. I absolutely can. And I should have done it the moment Mr. Cole sent his first warning. She looked at the Meridian executives. I apologize for wasting your time. We'll reconvene when we've resolved this internally. The room began to empty. Lawyers gathering papers. Executives avoiding eye contact. Richard being led toward the door by 2 security officers who'd appeared from nowhere. As he passed Ethan, he leaned in close. You just ended your career to feel self-righteous for 5 minutes. Hope it was worth it. Ethan didn't respond. When the room was finally empty except for Victoria and a handful of board members, she walked over to where Ethan was packing up his laptop. My office. Now. I need to take my daughter. Bring her. I don't care. They rode the elevator to the 47th floor in silence. Sophie held Ethan's hand and hummed quietly. Victoria stared straight ahead, her face unreadable. Her office was enormous. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city. Furniture that looked like it cost more than Ethan's car. Degrees from Princeton and Harvard on the wall. Sophie's eyes went wide. Daddy, she has a chandelier. I see that, baby. Why does her office have a chandelier? Because she's the boss. The boss of chandeliers? Despite everything, Ethan almost smiled. Victoria sat behind her desk. She didn't invite Ethan to sit. Do you have any idea what you just did? I stopped a bad deal. You humiliated me in front of international investors and my own board. You humiliated yourself when you used my daughter as a weapon against me. Her eyes flashed. I was trying to maintain control of You were trying to shut me up. And you thought attacking me personally would work because I'm nobody, because I don't matter. That's not, isn't it? Ethan's voice stayed level, but something sharp moved underneath. You stood there and told everyone in that room that I couldn't think clearly because I'm a single father. You made my daughter a liability. You made my life a weakness. Victoria opened her mouth, closed it. Sophie tugged on Ethan's sleeve. Daddy, why is the boss lady sad? I don't know, sweetheart. She looks sad. Like when you look at the mail sometimes. Victoria's hands were flat on her desk. Ethan could see her knuckles were white. I didn't know, she said quietly. About Richard. About the contract changes. But you knew I'd sent warnings, and you ignored them anyway. I trusted my executive team. You trusted the wrong people. Silence. Then Victoria looked at Sophie. What's your rabbit's name? Sophie held him up. Mr. Hopscotch. He's a pirate. Why is he a pirate? His ear fell off, and Daddy sewed it back on with blue thread because we didn't have white, and I said it made him look like he had a bandana. I see. Something softened in Victoria's face. That was smart. I know. I'm very smart. Victoria almost smiled. Then she looked at Ethan. You were right about everything, and I was wrong. The words came out like they physically hurt. But you have to understand the position I'm in. Every decision I make, every move, people are watching to see if I fail. If I show weakness, I wasn't making you look weak. I was trying to keep you from making a catastrophic mistake. I know that now. Do you? She met his eyes. Yes. Ethan's phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. Building security has been notified of your access suspension. Please collect your personal items and exit the premises by end of business day. He stared at the screen. Victoria saw his expression. What? He showed her the message. Her face went white. I didn't authorize that. Someone did. She grabbed her desk phone and dialed. Security. This is Victoria Whitmore. There's been an error regarding access suspension for Ethan Cole. Employee ID. She looked at Ethan. 77432. Employee ID 77432. Reinstate his access immediately and find out who issued the suspension order. She paused. I don't care what the system says. I'm countermanding it. Do it now. She hung up. You're not fired. Your HR department scheduled a disciplinary meeting for tomorrow morning. Cancel it. I don't think I can. I can. She picked up the phone again. Jennifer, it's Victoria. The meeting's scheduled with Ethan Cole tomorrow. Cancel it. No, permanently. Because I said so. And Jennifer? If anyone in your department tries to retaliate against Mr. Cole for what happened today, I will personally ensure they're looking for new employment. Are we clear? She hung up again. Sophie whispered loudly, Daddy, she's scary. Little bit, yeah. Victoria looked at both of them for a long moment. Then she stood and walked to the window. My father built this company from nothing. When he handed it to me, everyone said I didn't earn it, that I was too young, too inexperienced, that I'd destroy everything he created. She didn't turn around. So I've spent 2 years proving I'm ruthless enough, decisive enough, strong enough. And today I learned that being strong and being right aren't the same thing. Ethan didn't respond. You risked everything today. Your job, your daughter's security? Why? Because someone had to. That's not an answer. Yes, it is. Ethan stood taking Sophie's hand. I didn't risk everything. I risked my job. If I'd stayed silent, I would have risked everything. My integrity, my daughter's respect, my ability to look at myself in the mirror. I would have risked who I am. Victoria finally turned around. I need people like you. You have people like me. You just don't listen to them. I'm listening now. Are you? Or are you trying to fix your reputation? Her expression hardened. Both. I'm trying to do both. Is that allowed? Ethan studied her face, saw something genuine underneath the armor. Yeah, he said quietly. That's allowed. Go home. Take the rest of the day. Monday, we'll talk about what comes next. I still have a job? You have a job. You might have a different job, but you're not fired. Sophie tugged on Victoria's sleeve. The CEO looked down, startled. You should say sorry, Sophie said seriously. When you hurt someone's feelings, you say sorry. That's the rule. Victoria knelt down slowly until she was at Sophie's eye level. You're right. I should. She looked at Ethan. I'm sorry. For what I said in that room, for using your daughter against you, for not listening when you were trying to help. I'm sorry. Sophie nodded. Okay. Now you hug. Sophie, Ethan started. That's the rule. Sorry. Then hug. Then friends again. Victoria looked at Ethan. Something passed between them. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But maybe the beginning of understanding. She stood and extended her hand. Ethan shook it. We're not friends, Victoria said. No, Ethan agreed. We're not. But maybe we can be colleagues. Real ones. Maybe. Sophie sighed dramatically. Grown-ups are weird. They took the elevator down in silence. As the doors opened onto the lobby, Victoria spoke one more time. Cole? Ethan turned. Thank you. For not letting me destroy this company. He nodded. Then he and Sophie walked out into the afternoon sunlight, and for the first time in 6 years, Ethan felt like maybe, just maybe, telling the truth hadn't been a mistake. Daddy? Yeah, baby? Can we get extra cheese? We can get whatever you want. Good, because you were very brave today, and brave people get extra cheese. Ethan laughed, really laughed, and it felt like breathing for the first time all day. They had pizza, the good kind. Extra cheese, and for one afternoon, the weight of the world felt just a little bit lighter. The weekend passed in a strange fog. Saturday morning, Ethan woke up expecting the familiar anxiety of unpaid bills and looming deadlines, but instead found himself staring at his phone, half convinced Friday had been some kind of fever dream. Sophie was watching cartoons in the living room, Mr. Hopscotch propped up beside her like a tiny security guard. Daddy, is it a work day? No, baby, it's Saturday. Good. I don't like your work days. Yeah? He sat down beside her. Why not? She thought about it seriously. Because you get the worry face. The worry face? She scrunched up her forehead and pressed her lips together. It was disturbingly accurate. Okay, that's fair. His phone buzzed. Email notification. He almost ignored it. Weekends were supposed to be sacred, but the sender line made him look twice. Victoria Whitmore. He opened it. Cole. Board meeting, Monday, 8 a.m. Your presence required. This isn't optional. Bring documentation of everything. VW. No pleasantries, no context, just orders. Ethan set the phone down and tried to focus on the cartoon. Something about talking dogs solving mysteries. Sophie was completely absorbed. He couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just traded one nightmare for a different one. Monday morning arrived too fast. Ethan dropped Sophie at school 20 minutes early. Her teacher gave him a look when he asked if she could stay late if needed. The kind of look that said single fathers were always one emergency away from falling apart, and drove downtown with his stomach in knots. The building looked different somehow. Or maybe he looked different. He couldn't tell anymore. Security waved him through without issue. His badge worked. The elevator took him to 34 without incident. His desk was exactly where he'd left it, coffee mug and all. Martin Chen from the cubicle next to his looked up as Ethan sat down. Holy shit, you're alive. Why wouldn't I be alive? Dude, you nuked a $1 billion deal and made Richard Hale look like an idiot in front of the entire executive team. I figured they'd have disappeared you by now. Disappeared me? You know, corporate assassination. Sudden transfer to the Alaskan office that doesn't exist. There's an Alaskan office? No, that's my point. Ethan logged into his system. 17 new emails since Friday afternoon. He scanned the subject lines. Most were from people he'd never heard of, following up on risk analysis protocols. Questions regarding contract review process. Urgent. Meeting request. One was from Jennifer in HR. Mr. Cole, please disregard previous meeting notice. All performance review concerns have been withdrawn. Jay Martin leaned over the cubicle wall. What'd you do this weekend? Took my daughter to the park. That's it? You didn't hire a lawyer or update your resume? Should I have? Man, I don't know. This place has been insane. Richard's gone. Actually gone. Security escorted him out Friday afternoon. He didn't even get to take his desk photos. What about the Meridian deal? Suspended. Legal's tearing the whole thing apart. Apparently Richard made 6 unauthorized changes nobody caught. Martin lowered his voice. People are saying you're either getting promoted or fired. No middle ground. That's comforting. Yeah, well, welcome to corporate politics. You're in the arena now. At 7:55 a.m., Ethan's phone rang. Executive assistant. Mr. Cole, Miss Whitmore is ready for you. He took the elevator to 47. The executive floor always smelled like expensive coffee and quiet desperation. He wondered which one he'd be contributing to today. Victoria's office door was open. She sat behind her desk reviewing documents, reading glasses perched on her nose. She looked different, tired maybe, or just human. Cole? Sit. He sat. She kept reading for another 30 seconds, making him wait. Power play. He recognized it. Finally, she looked up and removed the glasses. Do you know why you're here? Not really. The board wants to understand what happened Friday. Specifically, they want to know why a senior risk analyst had information about contract vulnerabilities that never reached executive leadership. I sent 3 emails. I know. I've read them. Multiple times. She slid a folder across the desk. Legal pulled the full communication chain. Your warnings went to your department head, Marcus Webb. He forwarded them to Diane Chu in legal with a note saying they were overly cautious and not actionable. Diane sent them to Richard with a recommendation to proceed as planned. Ethan opened the folder. Sure enough, there was the entire chain. His warnings, diluted at every level until they were basically meaningless. Marcus and Diane are being reassigned, Victoria continued. Not fired. Reassigned. They followed protocol, technically, but their judgment was catastrophically bad. And Richard? Richard is being investigated by both internal audit and external counsel. If they find evidence of intentional fraud, it goes to law enforcement. Ethan felt something cold settle in his chest. I didn't mean to. Stop! Victoria's voice was sharp. Don't apologize for doing your job. Richard made his choices. You just refused to ignore them. She stood and walked to the window. The city stretched out below them, indifferent and vast. I'm reorganizing the risk management structure, creating a direct reporting line to my office for critical assessments. No more middle management dilution. If someone like you sees something catastrophic, I want to know about it immediately. Okay. And I'm promoting you to Senior Operations Director. Ethan blinked. What? You heard me. I'm a risk analyst. You were a risk analyst. Now you're a director. 40% salary increase, full benefits package, private office, and a team of 8 people reporting directly to you. His mind was racing. 40%. That would cover Sophie's medication with money left over. That would mean real health insurance, not the bare minimum plan that barely covered checkups. There's a condition, Victoria said. Of course there was. If you take this position, you answer directly to me. You attend executive meetings. You challenge decisions when you see problems. You become visible. I don't want to be visible. Too late. You already are. She turned back to face him. Friday changed things. The board sees you as someone who values integrity over career advancement. The investors trust you. Like it or not, you're a symbol now. I don't want to be a symbol. I want to do my job and take care of my daughter. Then you're going to hate what I'm about to say. She pulled out another document. This one was stapled and official looking. The board wants you to present the revised Meridian contract analysis at Wednesday's investor meeting. Full presentation. Q&A session. The works. Ethan's hands went cold. No. It's not optional. I'm not doing presentations in front of investors. That's not my job. It is now. Then I don't want the promotion. Victoria studied him for a long moment. Why not? Because I have a 7-year-old daughter who needs me. Because I can't stay late for executive dinners or fly to international meetings or play whatever games you people play up here. Because I'm barely holding my life together as it is. You think I don't know that? Her voice was quieter now. You think I didn't notice you checking your phone every 10 minutes Friday? You think I don't understand what's at stake for you? Then why are you pushing this? Because you're good at it. Because this company needs people who tell the truth even when it's hard. And because she stopped herself. Because what? She sat back down and for just a second the armor cracked again. Because I spent 2 years surrounding myself with people who tell me what I want to hear. People like Richard, who smile and nod and hide problems until they explode. I need people who challenge me. I need you to challenge me. Find someone else. There is no one else. Not like you. Ethan stood. I need to think about it. You have until tomorrow morning. That's not enough time. It's what you have. He walked toward the door, then stopped. Can I ask you something? Go ahead. Friday, when you said that thing about me being distracted because of Sophie, did you mean it? Victoria looked away. I was trying to regain control of the room. That's not what I asked. Silence. No, she said finally. I didn't mean it. I was angry and scared, and I lashed out at the easiest target. It was cruel. I'm sorry. Ethan nodded slowly. Okay. Does that change anything? I don't know yet. He left before she could respond. The rest of Monday dissolved into a blur of congratulations from people who'd never spoken to him before, and suspicious looks from people who suddenly saw him as a threat. Martin invited him to lunch. Ethan declined. He needed to think. At 2:47 p.m., his phone rang. Unknown number. He let it go to voicemail, then listened to the message. Mr. Cole, this is Dr. Richardson from Riverside Pediatrics. We're calling about Sophie's upcoming appointment. We show an outstanding balance of $640. We'll need to settle that before we can see her next week. Please call us back. Ethan closed his eyes. The 40% salary increase would cover that, would cover all of it, but it would also mean late nights, executive meetings, visibility. It would mean becoming someone else. He picked up his desk phone and dialed the pediatrician's office. This is Ethan Cole. I got your message about Sophie's balance. Yes, Mr. Cole. As I mentioned, I'll have it paid by Wednesday. Pause. We'll need confirmation before the appointment. You'll have it. He hung up and stared at his computer screen. The promotion letter was in his inbox now, official and binding, just waiting for his signature. His phone buzzed. Text from Sophie's school. Sophie fell on the playground. Minor scrape on knee. She's fine, but asking for you. He grabbed his keys and headed for the elevator. Traffic was nightmare. By the time he reached the school, it was 3:30, and Sophie was sitting in the nurse's office with a Band-Aid on her knee and tear tracks on her face. Daddy! She launched herself at him. He caught her automatically. Hey, baby, I heard you took a tumble. Marcus pushed me during tag, and I fell on the concrete, and it hurt really bad. Did you tell the teacher? She said it was an accident. Was it an accident? Sophie's face scrunched up. I don't know, maybe. The nurse cleared her throat. Mr. Cole, she's fine, just shaken up. Kids fall all the time. I know, thank you. He carried Sophie to the car, even though she was perfectly capable of walking. Sometimes she needed to be carried. Sometimes he needed to carry her. Daddy, you left work early. You needed me. But isn't work important? You're more important. She was quiet for a moment, then, is that why you got in trouble Friday? Because I was there? Ethan's chest tightened. No, baby, that's not why. The mean lady said the mean lady was wrong, and she apologized. Oh. Sophie rested her head on his shoulder. Are you still going to have your job? Yeah, sweetheart. I'm still going to have my job. Good. I like it when you have a job. Why's that? Because you're less worried, and we get the good pizza sometimes. Ethan laughed despite everything. Those are pretty good reasons. That evening, after Sophie was asleep, Ethan sat at his kitchen table with the promotion letter in front of him, unsigned. He thought about Friday, about standing in that conference room with everyone staring at him like he was crazy, about Victoria's face when she realized Richard had betrayed her, about Sophie asking if they could go eat, completely oblivious to the fact that her father had just committed career suicide. Except he hadn't. Somehow. His phone rang. He checked the caller ID, Victoria Whitmore. He almost didn't answer. Cole speaking. You left early today. My daughter needed me. I know, the school called the emergency contact list. You weren't answering, so they tried the office. Ethan felt heat rise in his face. She fell. It wasn't serious, but... Cole, I'm not calling to reprimand you. I'm calling because I need an answer. I said I'd tell you tomorrow. I know what you said, but I also know you're sitting at your kitchen table right now, staring at that letter, trying to figure out if taking this promotion means abandoning your daughter. How do you... Because that's what I'd be thinking if I were you. So I'm going to make this simple. She paused. If Sophie needs you, you leave. No questions asked. No explanations required. You put her first, and I'll work around it. That's not how executive positions work. It's how this one works. Why? Because I watched you kneel down next to her Friday while this entire deal was falling apart, and you didn't hesitate. Not for a second. You didn't check with me. You didn't weigh the professional cost. You just took care of her. Victoria's voice was quieter now. I spent 2 years learning how to be ruthless. Maybe it's time I learned something else. Ethan didn't know what to say. Sign the letter, Cole. Take the promotion. Show up Wednesday and give the presentation. And if your daughter needs you, you walk out of that meeting and nobody will say a word about it. You have my guarantee. And if the board has a problem with that, then they can take it up with me. She hung up before he could respond. Ethan looked at the letter, at the signature line waiting for his name. He thought about Sophie's medical bills, about the check engine light in his car, about the rent increase notice that had arrived last month. He thought about telling the truth in that conference room, about refusing to stay silent even when it would have been easier. He signed the letter. Tuesday morning, he arrived at work to find his new office already set up. Corner space, 34th floor, with an actual window that looked out over the city. His desk was real wood, not laminate. There was a couch, an actual couch. Martin appeared in the doorway with coffee. Holy shit, you have a couch. I have a couch. Can I sit on your couch? It's a couch, not a throne. Martin sat down carefully, like he expected an alarm to go off. This is surreal. Last week you were in a cubicle, now you're practically an executive. I'm not an executive. You have a couch and a window, you're basically royalty. Ethan's new assistant, he had an assistant now, an efficient woman named Patricia, who'd introduced herself at 8:15 with his entire schedule memorized, knocked on the doorframe. Mr. Cole, Miss Whitmore would like to see you. Conference room C. When? Now, sir. Martin grinned. Good luck, Your Majesty. Conference room C was smaller than the one where everything had exploded Friday. Only 8 chairs. Victoria was already there with 2 people Ethan didn't recognize. A man in his 60s with steel gray hair and a younger woman with sharp eyes and an expensive suit. Cole, this is Thomas Brennan, head of our legal department, and Sarah Chen, our new interim chief strategy officer. They shook hands. Sarah's grip was firm. Thomas looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. We're rebuilding the Meridian contract from scratch, Victoria said. I want you leading the risk assessment. I thought legal handled contract review. Legal handles legal language. You handle whether the deal actually makes sense. She slid a document across the table. Meridian is willing to restart negotiations, but they want guarantees. Specifically, they want independent oversight of risk assessment. They want your signature on any final agreement. Ethan scanned the document. They want me personally to sign off? You're the only person they trust right now. That's insane. That's reality. Sarah leaned forward. After what happened Friday, you're the most credible person in this building. The investors see you as someone who can't be bought or intimidated. That's worth more than you realize. Thomas cleared his throat. There's a complication. Of course there is, Ethan muttered. Richard Hale is threatening legal action, wrongful termination, defamation. He's claiming you falsified evidence to make him look incompetent. The room went very quiet. Did I falsify evidence? Ethan asked. No, everything you presented was accurate, but he's arguing that you misrepresented the context and intent. The context was that he changed the contract without authorization. The intent was to hide the changes until after signing. What's there to misrepresent? Victoria's jaw was tight. He's trying to paint you as an overzealous employee with a personal vendetta. I didn't even know who he was until last week. It doesn't matter. He's got a very expensive lawyer who's very good at creating doubt. Ethan felt the weight of it settling on his shoulders. What do you need from me? Documentation, timestamps, every email, every warning, every attempt you made to raise concerns through proper channels. We're building a timeline that shows Richard had multiple opportunities to address your concerns and chose to ignore them. When do you need it? Yesterday, Thomas said, but we'll settle for end of day today. The meeting lasted another 40 minutes. Procedures, protocols, legal strategies. Ethan's head was spinning by the time they finished. As everyone filed out, Victoria hung back. You okay? Define okay. Fair point. She gathered her papers. For what it's worth, Richard's lawsuit is a Hail Mary. He knows he's guilty. He's just trying to muddy the waters enough to negotiate a settlement. Will it work? Not if we don't let it. Wednesday arrived like a freight train. Ethan had stayed up until 2 a.m. preparing the presentation, then woke up at 5:30 in a panic because he dreamed his laptop had caught fire halfway through the investor meeting. Sophie noticed at breakfast. "Daddy, you have the worry face again." "Big presentation today, baby. Are you going to tell the truth again?" "That's the plan." "Then you'll be fine. Truth always wins." He wished he had her certainty. The investor meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. Ethan arrived at 9:15 to set up. The same conference room as Friday. Same massive table. Same floor-to-ceiling windows. Different stakes. Patricia had sent him the attendee list yesterday. 23 people. Board members, investors, legal counsel, financial advisors. And Victoria. Ethan connected his laptop and ran through the slides one more time. The revised contract analysis, risk assessments, financial projections. Everything clean, clear, defensible. His hands were shaking. At 9:45, people started filing in. Ethan recognized some faces from Friday. The British investor, his name was James apparently. The severe woman with silver glasses, Dr. Chen from Meridian's board. Others were new. Victoria arrived at 9:52, wearing another sharp suit and her signature "Don't test me" expression. She caught Ethan's eye and gave a small nod. At exactly 10 a.m., she stood. "Thank you all for coming. As you know, we've spent the last 4 days conducting a complete review of the Meridian partnership. Today, Mr. Cole will present the revised risk assessment and contract structure." All eyes turned to Ethan. He stood slowly. His mouth was dry. "Good morning. I'm going to walk you through the comprehensive risk analysis of the restructured Meridian International Agreement." His voice didn't shake. He was surprised. The first slide appeared on screen. Overview of the original contract vulnerabilities. As identified last Friday, the primary risk factor was the modified port failure clause in Section 14.7c. This modification reduced Whitmore Global's protection in overlapping disruption scenarios and exposed the company to potential losses exceeding $700 million. James raised his hand. "Have those vulnerabilities been addressed?" "Yes. The revised contract restores the original protection language and adds 3 additional safeguards." Ethan clicked to the next slide. "First, we've implemented tiered response protocols that activate at different severity levels. Second, we've established a joint risk monitoring system with Meridian that provides real-time alerts for emerging threats. Third, we've created a reserve fund specifically designated for emergency port disruptions." Dr. Chen leaned forward. "What's the cost of these additional safeguards?" "Approximately $42 million over the contract's 5-year term." A board member, elderly, white-haired, looked like he'd been rich since birth, spoke up. "That's a significant increase." "It is," Ethan agreed. "It's also $42 million versus $700 million. The math is straightforward." Someone actually laughed. Ethan spent the next 30 minutes walking through scenarios, projections, contingencies. He'd expected to be nervous, but something strange happened as he talked. He stopped thinking about the audience, stopped worrying about saying the wrong thing. He just focused on the data, on making it clear, on telling the truth. When he finished, the room was quiet for a moment. Then James spoke. "That was extraordinarily thorough. Thank you, Mr. Cole." Dr. Chen nodded. "I have to say, this is exactly the kind of transparency we were hoping for." The white-haired board member cleared his throat. "I have a question. Of course. Why should we trust that this analysis is any more reliable than the one we nearly signed Friday?" The temperature in the room dropped. Victoria started to respond, but Ethan spoke first. "You shouldn't." Every head turned. "You shouldn't trust my analysis just because I'm presenting it. You should trust it because I've documented every assumption, every data source, every calculation. Everything is verifiable. Everything is transparent." He looked directly at the board member. "And if you find an error, I want you to tell me, because I'd rather be wrong in this room than catastrophically wrong 3 years from now." The board member stared at him for a long moment. Then he smiled. "Fair answer, son." The rest of the meeting was procedural. Questions about implementation timelines, clarifications on monitoring systems, Discussion of audit protocols. At 11:30, Victoria called for a vote. All in favor of proceeding with the revised Meridian contract as presented? Every hand went up. Motion passes. We'll schedule the signing for next month pending final legal review. As people filed out, several stopped to shake Ethan's hand, to thank him, to tell him he'd done excellent work. It felt surreal. When the room was finally empty except for Victoria, she walked over to where Ethan was packing up his laptop. "You did good." "I didn't throw up, that's something." "You did better than good. You made them trust you." She paused. "That's rare." "I just showed them the data." "No, you showed them honesty. There's a difference." Ethan's phone buzzed. Text from Sophie's school. Reminder: parent-teacher conferences next Tuesday, 3 to 6 p.m. Please confirm your time slot. He typed back quickly. Confirmed for 3:30. Victoria saw his expression. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, just school stuff." "You can go if you need to." "I'm fine." She studied his face. "Cole, I meant what I said. If Sophie needs you, I know, I believe you." That seemed to surprise her. They walked to the elevator together, rode down in silence. As the doors opened on the 34th floor, Victoria spoke one more time. "There's going to be pushback. From people who think you got promoted too fast. People who resent that you challenged the hierarchy and won. I know. Can you handle it?" Ethan thought about Friday, about standing in front of all those executives and refusing to back down, about the look on Richard Hale's face when the evidence appeared on screen. "Yeah," he said, "I can handle it." Victoria nodded. "Good." The elevator doors closed. Ethan walked back to his office with the window and the couch, and sat down at his desk. His phone rang. External line. "Cole speaking." "Mr. Cole, this is Linda Martinez from the legal department. We need to schedule a deposition regarding the Richard Hale case. Are you available Friday afternoon?" His first instinct was to say no, to find an excuse, to avoid the whole thing. Instead he said, "What time?" 2 p.m. It should take about 3 hours. 3 hours of questions. 3 hours of lawyers trying to trip him up. 3 hours of defending himself against a man who'd tried to destroy him for telling the truth. "I'll be there." He hung up and stared out the window at the city below. Somewhere out there, Sophie was in class learning multiplication tables, or how to spell words she'd forget by tomorrow. Somewhere out there, other single parents were juggling impossible schedules and impossible choices. And somewhere in this building, people were still trying to bury the truth. But Ethan wasn't going anywhere. Not anymore. Friday's deposition started at exactly 2 p.m. in a conference room that smelled like old coffee and corporate warfare. Richard Hale's attorney was a woman named Constance Merrick, who wore pearls that probably cost more than Ethan's car and had a smile that could cut glass. Thomas Brennan sat beside Ethan, looking grim. Across the table, Richard hadn't made eye contact once. He kept his gaze fixed on the legal pad in front of him, jaw tight, expensive suit looking slightly rumpled like he'd slept in it. The court reporter set up her equipment. Constance arranged her files with precise, deliberate movements. "Mr. Cole," she began, voice smooth as poison, "thank you for joining us today." "Didn't really have a choice," she smiled. "Let's start with your employment history at Whitmore Global. You've been with the company for 6 years, correct?" "Yes." "And in those 6 years, how many times have you directly interacted with C-suite executives?" Ethan glanced at Thomas, who nodded slightly. "Before last Friday? Never. Never. Not once in 6 years." Constance made a note. "So it's fair to say you had no relationship with Mr. Hale prior to the events of May 2nd? "That's correct. No professional conflicts? No personal disagreements?" "I didn't know who he was." "And yet you publicly accused him of fraud in front of international investors and the company's board of directors." Thomas cut in. "Objection. That's a mischaracterization. Mr. Cole presented documented evidence of contract modifications. Documented evidence that conveniently made my client look like a criminal." Constance turned back to Ethan. "Isn't it true that you were facing disciplinary action from HR the week of the incident?" Ethan felt his stomach tighten. "HR scheduled a meeting, yes. A mandatory meeting regarding your performance. That must have been stressful." "It was. Stressful enough to make you desperate, Desperate enough to manufacture a crisis to deflect attention from your own performance issues? I didn't manufacture anything. But you did bring your daughter to work that day, a 7-year-old child to a corporate office during the most critical business negotiation of the year. That shows questionable judgment, doesn't it? Thomas started to object, but Ethan spoke first. My daughter's school closed unexpectedly. I had no other childcare options. I brought her with me because the alternative was missing work during a critical period. If that shows questionable judgment, then I'm guilty. Constance's smile widened. And while you were distracted by childcare responsibilities, you became convinced that a contract reviewed and approved by multiple departments and executives had a fatal flaw that only you could see. The flaw was there whether I saw it or not, or you saw what you wanted to see, a chance to be the hero, to save the company and secure your job. Ethan's hands were flat on the table. He could feel his pulse in his throat. I saw a clause that had been modified without proper authorization. I saw financial projections that showed catastrophic risk exposure. I saw evidence that warnings had been ignored. That's not what I wanted to see. That's what was there. According to your interpretation, according to the data that you selected, data that you presented in a specific context designed to support your narrative. Thomas leaned forward. Counselor, every piece of evidence Mr. Cole presented has been verified by independent auditors. If you're suggesting the numbers were falsified, I'm suggesting that Mr. Cole had significant personal motivations to create drama where none existed. His job was in jeopardy. His childcare situation was unstable. He needed to prove his value to the company. She looked at Ethan. Isn't that true? My job being in jeopardy doesn't make the evidence false. But it does make you biased. Everyone's biased. That doesn't change facts. Constance shuffled through her notes. Let's talk about your email warnings. You sent 3 messages over 4 days, each one progressively more alarmist, each one using stronger language. Why the escalation? Because no one was listening, or because you were building a paper trail, creating documentation that would support your eventual accusations. Ethan took a slow breath. I sent warnings because I found a problem. I escalated because the problem wasn't being addressed. That's called doing my job. Is it also your job to publicly humiliate senior executives? I didn't humiliate anyone. I presented facts. You presented facts in the most damaging way possible, at the most damaging moment possible, in front of the people whose opinions matter most. Her voice was sharp now. You waited until my client was vulnerable, in the middle of a high-stakes negotiation, and then you struck. That's not whistleblowing, Mr. Cole. That's sabotage. The room was completely silent. Ethan looked at Richard for the first time. The older man's face was blank, but something moved behind his eyes. Anger. Or maybe fear. I didn't wait for anything, Ethan said quietly. I warned everyone who would listen. Your client ignored those warnings because fixing the problem would have delayed the deal. He chose the timeline over the truth. That's on him. Constance leaned back. My client made a strategic decision based on calculated risk assessment. Your client modified a contract without authorization and hid the changes from legal review. That's not strategy. That's fraud. Objection, Constance snapped. Thomas actually smiled. He's just stating his opinion, counselor. The deposition continued for another 2 hours. Question after question, each one designed to find cracks in Ethan's story, inconsistencies in his timeline, evidence of ulterior motives. By the time it ended at 5:15, Ethan felt like he'd been beaten with a stick. Richard left first, still not making eye contact. Constance packed up her files with the same precise movements, gave Thomas a curt nod, and walked out. Thomas waited until the door closed. You did well. Didn't feel like it. She was trying to rattle you, make you angry, get you to say something stupid. He gathered his own files. You stayed calm, stuck to facts. That's all we needed. Is his lawsuit going anywhere? Probably not. But he doesn't need it to go anywhere. He just needs to make enough noise that settling becomes cheaper than fighting. So what happens now? Now we wait. See if he's smart enough to back down or stupid enough to push forward. Ethan checked his phone. 3 missed calls from Sophie's after-school program. His heart stopped. He dialed back immediately. It rang twice. Mr. Cole, this is Janet from Riverside After School. Sophie's fine, but she's asking for you. She's not feeling well. What kind of not well? Upset stomach, no fever, she just wants to go home. I'm on my way. He was out the door before Thomas could respond. Traffic was brutal. It took 40 minutes to reach the school. By the time Ethan got there, Sophie was sitting in the nurse's office, looking small and miserable. Daddy. Hey, baby, I hear you're not feeling good. My tummy hurts. He pressed his hand to her forehead. No fever. What'd you eat today? Chicken nuggets and carrots. And Maddie gave me part of her cookie. What kind of cookie? Chocolate chip. Ethan looked at the nurse. She's lactose intolerant. Oh. The nurse made a note. That would explain it. He carried Sophie to the car. She leaned against him, quiet and tired. Daddy, why do cookies have to have milk in them? Because the universe is unfair, sweetheart. That's a bad reason. Yep. At home, he gave her the medication that was supposed to help with the lactose issue, the expensive medication that his new salary could actually cover without him having to choose between that and rent, and settled her on the couch with Mr. Hopscotch and her favorite blanket. Can we watch a movie? Which one? The one with the fish. They'd watched it approximately 400 times. Ethan could recite entire scenes from memory. The one with the fish, it is. Halfway through, Sophie fell asleep. Ethan stayed on the couch beside her, watching animated fish swim across the screen, thinking about Constance Merrick's questions. His phone buzzed. Text from Victoria. Thomas said the deposition went well. You holding up? He typed back. Define well. The response came 30 seconds later. You didn't punch anyone. That's well. Despite everything, Ethan smiled. Sophie's sick, ate something she shouldn't have. Is she okay? Yeah, just needs rest. There was a longer pause before the next message. Take Monday off. Both of you. I have the contract review meeting. I'll reschedule it. Take care of your daughter. Ethan stared at the phone. A year ago, hell, 2 weeks ago, taking a day off would have meant panic. Fear of being replaced. Fear of falling behind. Fear of being seen as unreliable. Now his CEO was telling him to stay home. Thank you. Stop thanking me. It's your time. Use it. Sophie stirred beside him, mumbled something about fish, and went back to sleep. Ethan turned off the TV and just sat there in the quiet apartment, listening to his daughter breathe. Monday, they stayed home. Ethan made pancakes that turned out slightly burned because Sophie distracted him with questions about why the moon followed the car at night. They played board games that Sophie changed the rules for halfway through. They built a blanket fort in the living room that collapsed twice before it finally stayed up. It was the best day Ethan had had in months. Tuesday morning, he was back at his desk by 7:30. Patricia had reorganized his entire schedule. The woman was terrifyingly efficient, and left him a note about 3 meetings that had been moved to accommodate his absence. At 9 a.m., Victoria called. My office, now. Her tone made Ethan's stomach drop. He took the elevator to 47. Victoria's assistant waved him through without comment. Victoria sat behind her desk with her reading glasses on, reviewing something on her tablet. She didn't look up. Sit. He sat. She finished whatever she was reading, set the tablet down, and removed her glasses. Richard's dropping the lawsuit. Ethan blinked. What? His attorney called Thomas this morning. They're withdrawing the wrongful termination claim. No settlement. No admission of guilt on either side. He just quit. Why? Because Thomas made it very clear that if they proceeded to trial, we'd bury him. We've got emails, timestamps, financial records, testimony from 3 separate department heads who all confirm you raised concerns through proper channels. She leaned back in her chair. Richard knew he couldn't win. He was just hoping we'd pay him to go away quietly. And you didn't. No, I didn't. She paused. Turns out I'm not great at rewarding people who betray my company. Ethan wasn't sure what to say. Victoria stood and walked to the window. The morning light made her look younger somehow. Or maybe just tired. My father called me yesterday. Okay? He wanted to know why I promoted a risk analyst nobody had ever heard of to a director position. Wanted to know if I was making decisions emotionally instead of strategically. What'd you tell him? I told him I promoted the only person in this building who had the spine to tell me the truth when it mattered. She turned back to face him. He said I was being naive, that loyalty is bought, not earned, that I'd regret trusting someone who didn't understand corporate politics. Do you think he's right? I think he built this company by surrounding himself with people exactly like Richard Hale. People who told him what he wanted to hear until the truth became irrelevant. Her expression hardened. I'm not doing that. I'm not building that kind of company. What kind are you building? She considered the question. I don't know yet, but it's going to have people like you in it. Before Ethan could respond, Patricia knocked on the doorframe. Ms. Whitmore, the Meridian team is here for the final contract review. Victoria checked her watch. Already? We're not scheduled until 10. They arrived early. They're waiting in conference room A. Victoria looked at Ethan. You ready? For what? To finish this deal. The right way this time. The conference room looked exactly the same as it had 2 weeks ago. Same table, same windows, same view, different people sitting around it. Dr. Chen was there, along with 3 other Meridian executives Ethan recognized from the previous negotiations. James, the British investor. 2 members of Whitmore Global's board. Sarah Chen, the new interim chief strategy officer. And Thomas Brennan, looking like he'd rather be literally anywhere else. Victoria took her seat at the head of the table. Ethan sat beside her, laptop ready. Thank you all for coming, Victoria began. I know the last 2 weeks have been complicated, but I believe we've arrived at an agreement that protects both parties and addresses the concerns that were raised. Dr. Chen spoke first. Before we proceed, I need to understand what's changed, not just in the contract language, but in your internal processes. How do we know this won't happen again? Victoria didn't hesitate. We've restructured our risk management reporting. Critical assessments now come directly to my office. We've implemented a 3-tier review system for all major contracts, and we've established an independent oversight committee that includes board members and external auditors. That's procedural. What about cultural? The room went very quiet. Victoria looked at Ethan. Do you want to take this? He hadn't been expecting that. Sure. He cleared his throat. The real problem wasn't process, it was incentive. People were rewarded for closing deals quickly, not for closing them correctly. When I raised concerns, they got filtered out because acknowledging them would have meant delays. Nobody wanted to be the person who slowed things down. And that's changed? Dr. Chen's expression was skeptical. Ask me in 6 months. But yeah, I think it's changing. Ethan pulled up a document on his laptop. Last week, someone on my team flagged a potential issue with a vendor contract. Small thing. Probably wouldn't have caused major problems, but it was there. They brought it to me, I brought it to Ms. Whitmore, and we fixed it before signing. How small? Small enough that 2 months ago it would have been ignored. That's the difference. James leaned forward. What was the impact on timeline? 3-day delay. And the client? Appreciated the transparency. Signed anyway. Dr. Chen made a note. I want quarterly reports on your risk management processes. Full disclosure. Any concerns raised, how they were addressed, outcomes. Victoria nodded. Done. And I want Mr. Cole's personal sign-off on any modifications to the agreement we're about to approve. Ethan nearly dropped his laptop. I'm sorry, what? You heard me. Any changes, minor or major, require your documented approval. You're our guarantee that this doesn't happen again. He looked at Victoria. She looked as surprised as he felt. That's unusual, Victoria said carefully. So was having a single risk analyst stop a billion-dollar deal because nobody else would listen to him? Dr. Chen's expression was firm. Either we trust Mr. Cole's judgment or we don't. If we don't, there's no point continuing. Victoria turned to Ethan. Your call. Every executive in the room was staring at him. This was insane. Requiring a director-level employee to personally approve contract modifications? It put a target on his back, made him responsible for things way above his pay grade. It also meant they trusted him, really trusted him. Okay, Ethan said, but I want it in writing that if I flag something, the deal stops until it's resolved. No exceptions. No pressure to approve things just to keep timelines. Dr. Chen smiled. Deal. The rest of the meeting went smoothly. They walked through the revised contract line by line, clarified language, confirmed safeguards, discussed implementation timelines. At 11:30, Dr. Chen stood. I think we're ready to sign. The contracts were already prepared. Legal had printed them that morning, 3 copies, bound in leather folders that probably cost more than Ethan's monthly car payment. Victoria signed first, then Dr. Chen, then James on behalf of the investment consortium. Then they turned to Ethan. "Just initial here," Thomas said, pointing to a line at the bottom of page 47. "Confirming you've reviewed and approved the final risk assessment." Ethan picked up the pen. It was heavy. Real metal, not plastic. He thought about Friday 2 weeks ago. About standing in this room with everyone thinking he was crazy. About Sophie asking if they could go eat while his career hung by a thread. He signed. The room erupted in polite applause. Handshakes all around. Congratulations. Relief. Dr. Chen pulled Ethan aside as people started gathering their things. "Thank you for not backing down. I just did my job." "No, you did everyone's job. That's different." She handed him her business card. "If you ever get tired of working for Whitmore Global, call me. Meridian could use people like you." She walked away before he could respond. Victoria appeared at his elbow. "Did she just try to poach you?" "I think so." "Should I be worried?" Ethan looked around the room, at the executives congratulating each other, at the contracts signed and sealed, at the deal that had almost destroyed everything finally, carefully done right. "No," he said, "you shouldn't be worried." That evening, Ethan picked up Sophie from school and took her to the good pizza place, the one with the arcade games and the too loud music that she loved. She beat him at skee-ball 3 times in a row. "Daddy, you're not even trying." "I am trying. You're just better at this than me." "That's because I practice in my brain during math class." "Pretty sure you're supposed to be doing math during math class." "Math is boring. Skee-ball is important." They got a corner booth and ordered pepperoni for Sophie, plain cheese for Ethan because he'd never really understood the appeal of pizza toppings. "Daddy, are you still important at work?" "What do you mean?" "That lady with the chandelier, is she still your friend?" "She's my boss, sweetheart. Not my friend." "But she's nice now, right? She's not mean anymore?" Ethan thought about Victoria telling him to take Monday off, about her standing up to her own father, about her restructuring the entire company because one risk analyst had been right. "Yeah," he said, "she's not mean anymore." "Good. I don't like mean people." "Me neither." Sophie took a huge bite of pizza and then talked around it, which Ethan had told her not to do approximately 7,000 times. "Marcus says his dad has an important job too. He's a dentist. That is an important job." "Is your job more important than a dentist?" "Nobody's job is more important than a dentist. Dentists are crucial." "What's crucial mean?" "Really important." "Then why didn't you just say that?" "Because I like the word crucial." She considered this. "Okay, you can use crucial." "Thank you for your permission." "You're welcome." His phone buzzed. Email notification. He almost ignored it. Dinner with Sophie was sacred time, but the sender made him look Richard Hale. Ethan's hand tightened on the phone. Sophie noticed. "What's wrong?" "Nothing, baby. Just work email." "You have the worry face." "Do not. Do too." He opened the email. "Cole, you win. I hope you're satisfied. You destroyed my career, my reputation, and my ability to work in this industry. All because you couldn't keep your mouth shut about things you didn't understand. You think you're a hero. You're not. You're just a self-righteous nobody who got lucky. Enjoy it while it lasts. RH." Ethan read it twice, then deleted it. "Daddy?" "Yeah, sweetheart? Are you okay?" He looked at his daughter, 7 years old, pizza sauce on her chin, completely oblivious to the fact that her father had just been called a self-righteous nobody by a man who'd tried to cost the company $700 million. "Yeah," he said. "I'm okay." "Good. Because I need more quarters for skee-ball." "You already beat me 3 times." "I know. I'm going for 5. He gave her the quarters. Later that night, after Sophie was asleep, Ethan sat at his kitchen table with his laptop open. The Meridian contract was officially signed. The deal was done. Everything he'd fought for had worked out. So why did he still feel like something was coming? His phone rang. Unknown number. He answered anyway. "Cole speaking." "Mr. Cole, this is Amanda from Ms. Whitmore's office." It was almost 10 p.m. Why was Victoria's assistant calling? "Is everything okay? Miss Whitmore would like to see you tomorrow morning, 7 a.m., her office." What's this about? She didn't say, but she said it's important. Okay, I'll be there. He hung up and stared at the phone. 7 a.m. Important. No details. Either he was about to get another promotion or everything was about to fall apart again. Wednesday morning arrived cold and gray. Ethan dropped Sophie at school early. She complained until he promised they'd get ice cream after dinner and drove downtown with his stomach in knots. The building was quiet at 6:45. Security was different overnight crew. They waved him through without the usual small talk. The elevator ride to 47 felt longer than usual. Victoria's office light was already on. Through the glass wall, Ethan could see her at her desk, phone pressed to her ear, expression tense. He knocked. She waved him in without hanging up. Don't care what the optics are. If we don't address this now, it'll destroy everything we've built. Pause. No, I'm not waiting for board approval. I'm telling you what's happening. Another pause. Fine. Emergency session. This afternoon. But this is happening regardless. She hung up and looked at Ethan. Sit. He sat. Victoria stood and walked to the window. Classic power move, making him wait. But her shoulders were tight. Whatever this was, it wasn't good. Do you remember when I said we were rebuilding the company culture? Yeah. Turns out culture runs deeper than I thought. She turned to face him. We've got a problem. A big one. Ethan's chest tightened. How big? 3 senior executives just resigned, effective immediately. Who? Marcus Webb from your old department, Diane Chu from legal, and Gregory Foster from finance. Those were the 3 people who'd diluted Ethan's warnings about the Meridian contract, the ones who'd filtered his concerns until they were meaningless. Why'd they resign? Because I was about to fire them. Victoria's expression was hard. The investigation into the Meridian disaster didn't stop with Richard. We found evidence that all 3 of them knowingly suppressed your risk assessments, not just ignored them, actively buried them. Why would they do that? Because Richard promised them bonuses tied to deal completion. The faster the Meridian contract closed, the bigger their payouts. Your warnings would have meant delays. Delays meant smaller bonuses. Ethan felt sick. They sold out the company for money? They sold out the company because that's how the incentive structure worked. Close deals fast, get rewarded, raise concerns, get labeled as obstructive. She sat down heavily. I built that structure. I encouraged it. I thought it made us competitive. The silence stretched out. So what happens now? Ethan asked. Now we find out how deep this goes. How many other deals got pushed through with warnings suppressed? How many other risks were exposed to because people were chasing bonuses instead of doing their jobs? That could take months. It's going to take months, and I need you to lead the review. Ethan's head snapped up. What? You're the only person in this building who's proven they can't be bought or intimidated. I need you to audit every major contract we've signed in the last 3 years. Find the problems. Document everything. Tell me how bad this really is. Victoria, I'm already running risk management restructuring. I can't. I'll give you whatever resources you need. Full team. Unlimited access. Direct authority to freeze any contract that looks suspicious. That's insane. I'll be investigating deals signed by people who still work here. People with more seniority than me. I know. They'll hate me. They already hate you. Now, they'll have a reason. Ethan stood up and walked to the window. The city was waking up below them. Traffic building. People heading to jobs where the worst thing they deal with today was a difficult client or a boring meeting. He thought about Sophie, about stability, about the promotion he'd just gotten that was finally making their life manageable. If I do this, he said slowly, I need something from you. Name it. Protection. Real protection. If I find something that implicates someone powerful, I need to know you'll back me. Even if it's politically complicated, even if it hurts the company short term. Victoria stood. You have my word. Your word isn't enough. I need it in writing, in my employment contract, whistleblower protection that actually means something. Done. I'll have legal draft it today. And I need a guarantee that if this falls apart, if the board decides I'm more trouble than I'm worth, my severance package covers Sophie's health insurance for at least 2 years. Victoria's expression softened slightly. You'll have 3 years, and I'll put that in writing too. Ethan turned to face her. Why are you doing this? You could hire an outside firm, bring in consultants, keep me out of it. Because consultants write reports that get filed away and forgotten. You don't forget, you don't back down, and you don't let things go just because they're inconvenient. She met his eyes. I need that. The company needs that. Even if it means burning everything down to rebuild it correctly? Especially then. Ethan thought about Richard Hale's email. You think you're a hero. You're not. You're just a self-righteous nobody who got lucky. Maybe Richard was right. Or maybe Ethan was just a single father who'd gotten tired of watching people lie. Okay, he said. I'll do it. Victoria's expression didn't change, but something eased in her shoulders. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You might regret this in about 3 weeks when I freeze half the contracts in this company. Probably, but I'll regret it less than pretending everything's fine. She walked him to the door. As he reached the elevator, she called after him. Cole? He turned. Your daughter, Sophie. Does she know what you do here? She knows I work with numbers and worry a lot. You should tell her the truth, that you're trying to fix things. She'd be proud. The elevator doors opened. She's 7, Ethan said. She's proud of me when I remember to cut her sandwiches into triangles. Still. Tell her. The doors closed. Ethan rode down to 34 in silence, Victoria's words echoing in his head. That evening, after dinner, grilled cheese cut into triangles because Ethan had learned that lesson, Sophie asked him about his day. It was complicated, baby. What's complicated mean? It means hard and confusing at the same time. She thought about that. Like math? Exactly like math. Are you fixing something at work? Ethan looked at his daughter, really looked at her, 7 years old and already reading him better than most adults. Yeah, he said. I'm trying to fix something. Is it broken bad or broken a little? Broken bad. Can you fix it? I don't know yet. Sophie nodded seriously. That's okay. Sometimes things are broken and you just have to try really hard. That's what my teacher says. Your teacher's smart. I know. She gave me a gold star yesterday. What for? For helping Marcus when he didn't understand fractions. I'm very good at fractions. You are very good at fractions. She smiled, then climbed into his lap and rested her head on his shoulder. Daddy? Yeah, sweetheart? Even if the broken thing doesn't get fixed, you're still the best daddy. Ethan's throat tightened. Thanks, baby. You're welcome. Can we have ice cream now? You promised. I did promise, didn't I? Yep, and promises are important. They had ice cream. Chocolate chip for Sophie, vanilla for Ethan because he'd never really understood the appeal of mix-ins. And for one evening, the weight of what was coming felt just a little bit lighter. The contract audit officially started the following Monday with a team of 6 analysts Ethan had never met and a conference room that smelled like new carpet and anxiety. Victoria had given him free rein to pull anyone he needed from any department, but Ethan had deliberately chosen people from lower levels. Analysts who'd been passed over for promotions. Coordinators who'd been with the company for years without anyone noticing. The invisible ones. They sat around the table looking at him like he was about to send them into a war zone. Okay, Ethan began, standing at the head of the table with a marker in his hand and absolutely no idea how to run a team meeting. We're here to audit every major contract signed in the last 3 years. We're looking for suppressed risk assessments, unauthorized modifications, and incentive structures that prioritize speed over safety. A woman named Rachel, early 30s, sharp eyes, looked perpetually exhausted, raised her hand. Define major. Anything over 50 million. That's like 40 contracts. 47, actually. Silence. A younger guy, couldn't have been more than 25, still had that eager college graduate energy, spoke up. Are we really going after deals that are already signed and executed? Yes. But some of those involve executives who still work here, people with actual power. I know. So we're basically painting targets on our backs. Ethan set down the marker. Look, I'm not going to lie to you. This is going to make people angry. Some of those people will try to make your lives difficult. If anyone wants out, now's the time. No judgment, no consequences. Nobody moved. Rachel leaned forward. What's the actual goal here? Are we trying to fix problems or are we trying to assign blame? Both. We fix what we can. We document what we can't, and we make damn sure this doesn't happen again. And if we find something really bad? Then we find something really bad. She smiled slightly. Good. I've been here 8 years and I'm tired of pretending everything's fine. The others nodded. Ethan felt something ease in his chest. All right, let's start with the contracts flagged during initial review. Rachel, you take the infrastructure deals. Michael, you've got technology acquisitions. Everyone else, pick a category and start digging. They scattered to their workstations. Ethan stood alone in the conference room, staring at the whiteboard where he'd written 47 contract names. His phone buzzed. Text from Sophie's school. Reminder, spring concert this Friday, 6 p.m. Sophie is very excited. Ethan typed back, I'll be there. He stared at the message for a moment, then added, front row. The first week was brutal. Ethan's team worked 12-hour days pulling contracts, analyzing risk assessments, cross-referencing email chains. They found problems immediately, small ones at first, delayed warnings, minimized concerns, risk assessments that had been edited to sound less urgent. Then they found the big ones. On Thursday afternoon, Rachel knocked on Ethan's office door. She looked pale. We have a problem. How bad? The Cascadia port expansion, signed 14 months ago, $80 million infrastructure deal. Ethan pulled up the file. He remembered this one vaguely. Major West Coast port modernization project. What about it? The original environmental impact assessment flagged significant seismic vulnerabilities, recommended additional reinforcement that would have added $18 million to the budget and pushed completion back 6 months. And someone rewrote the assessment, made the seismic risk sound negligible. The reinforcement was never added. Ethan's stomach dropped. Who signed off on the revision? Rachel slid a document across his desk. Authorization signature at the bottom. Gregory Foster, the finance executive who'd resigned 2 weeks ago. There's more, Rachel said quietly. The port's in an active earthquake zone. High risk for major seismic events. If something happens, how bad? Complete structural failure, potential casualties, billions in damages. Ethan closed his eyes. Who else knows about this? Just me? I wanted to bring it to you first. Good. Lock down the file. Don't tell anyone else yet. What are you going to do? Talk to Victoria. He called her office. Patricia answered. Ms. Whitmore is in a board meeting until 5. Tell her I need to see her the moment it's over. It's urgent. How urgent? People could die urgent. Patricia's voice changed. I'll let her know. Victoria called him back at 5:07. My office, now. He took the elevator to 47 with the Cascadia file under his arm. His hands were shaking. Victoria was standing by the window when he walked in. She turned, saw his expression, and her face went carefully blank. That bad? Worse. He laid out the findings, the original assessment, the revision, the missing reinforcements, the seismic risk. Victoria listened without interrupting. When he finished, she walked to her desk and sat down heavily. Options? We halt operations immediately. Bring in independent structural engineers. Assess the actual risk. If it's as bad as the original assessment suggests, we need to evacuate and reinforce before something catastrophic happens. That'll cost millions. Less than what we'll lose if the port collapses during an earthquake. The board will fight this. Foster's gone. We can't prove he acted alone. They'll argue we're overreacting. Then they're wrong. Victoria looked at him for a long moment. You're sure about this? Yes. Sure enough to bet your career on it? Ethan thought about Sophie, about stability, about the promotion and the salary increase and the health insurance that finally worked. Yes. Victoria picked up her phone. Get me the Cascadia Port project manager. I don't care if it's after hours. Find them. 10 minutes later, they had the project manager on speakerphone, a man named David Chen, who sounded confused about why the CEO was calling him at 5:30 on a Thursday. David, this is Victoria Whitmore. I need you to halt all operations at the Cascadia site effective immediately. Silence. Ms. Whitmore, we're in the middle of Phase 3 construction. If we halt now, we have evidence of compromised structural integrity, potential seismic vulnerabilities that weren't properly addressed during planning. I was told the environmental assessment cleared us for The assessment was falsified. We're bringing in independent engineers to evaluate the actual risk. Until they clear the site, everything stops. More silence. This is going to delay completion by months. Cost overruns will be massive. The client will understand when we explain that we're preventing a potential disaster. Send the halt order tonight. I want everyone off that site by Monday morning. Yes, ma'am. Victoria hung up and looked at Ethan. What else did your team find? We're only through 15 contracts. If the Cascadia deal is representative, it's going to get worse. Yeah. She stood and walked to the window again. The city lights were starting to come on below them. My father called me again today, said I'm destroying the company, that I'm letting a crusade against Richard Hale blind me to reality. What'd you tell him? I told him Richard Hale almost cost us $700 million, and someone needs to make sure it doesn't happen again. She turned back to face him. He said I was naive, that business requires compromise, that perfect integrity is impossible in the real world. Do you think he's right? I think he built a company where people like Gregory Foster could falsify safety assessments and get rewarded for it. I think that's not the kind of company I want to run. Ethan's phone buzzed. Text from the after-school program. Mr. Cole, Sophie's asking when you'll pick her up. She's the last one here. He checked the time, 6:15. The program closed at 6. I have to go, Victoria nodded. Go. He grabbed his jacket and headed for the elevator. Made it to Sophie's school by 6:35. She was sitting in the office with her backpack and Mr. Hopscotch, looking small and patient. Sorry, baby, work ran late. It's okay. Mrs. Henderson let me help organize the crayons. That was nice of her. In the car, Sophie was quiet for a while. Then, Daddy, are you fixing the broken thing at work? Yeah, sweetheart, still working on it. Is it getting fixed? It's getting more broken first. But that's how fixing works sometimes. You have to see how broken something really is before you can make it better. She thought about that. Like when we had to take apart my bike to fix the chain? Exactly like that. Okay, that makes sense, Sasa. That night, after Sophie was asleep, Ethan sat at his kitchen table reviewing the rest of the audit findings. Rachel had sent over preliminary reports on 6 more contracts. Every single one had problems. Suppressed warnings, modified assessments, risk evaluations that had been edited to sound less serious. His phone rang. Martin Chen. Dude, did you really shut down the Cascadia port? Word traveled fast. Had to. Safety issue. People are losing their minds. Project managers are calling emergency meetings. Finance is having a meltdown about cost overruns. Yeah, well, cost overruns are better than the port collapsing. I'm not arguing. I'm just saying you've got a target on your back now. Big one. Wasn't already? This is different. Before you were the guy who caught Richard Hale. Now you're the guy actively destroying deals. That makes people nervous. Good. They should be nervous. Martin was quiet for a moment. You're not going to back down, are you? No? All right, just watch your back. Not everyone in this building wants things fixed. Friday arrived with gray skies and a tension in the office that felt like static electricity. Ethan could feel people staring as he walked to his office, whispers following him down hallways. At 9 a.m., his phone rang, internal extension from the executive floor. Coles, this is Jonathan Reeves. I'm head of the board's finance committee. We need to talk about the Cascadia situation. Okay. My office, 10 minutes. The line went dead. Ethan had never met Jonathan Reeves, but he knew the reputation. Old money. Board member for 15 years, one of the people who'd initially opposed Victoria becoming CEO. Reeves's office was on 47, 3 doors down from Victoria's. It was twice the size and filled with enough expensive art to fund Sophie's college education. Reeves sat behind a desk made of dark wood that looked like it had been carved from a tree that predated the Civil War. He was in his late 60s, silver hair perfectly styled, suit that probably cost more than Ethan's car. Mr. Cole, sit. Ethan sat. Reeves didn't waste time. Explain to me why you shut down an $80 million project without board approval. I had evidence of structural vulnerabilities that pose significant safety risks. Evidence that you interpreted based on your judgment. Based on an environmental assessment that was falsified. You mean an assessment that was revised during normal project planning? Revised to hide safety concerns. That's not normal planning, that's fraud. Reeves's expression didn't change. You're new to management, Mr. Cole, so let me explain how things work. Sometimes risk assessments are overly cautious. Sometimes they need to be adjusted to reflect real-world conditions. That's not fraud, that's experience. Experience that could get people killed. That's dramatic. It's accurate. The port's in an active earthquake zone. If there's a major seismic event and the structure fails, that's a hypothetical. What's not hypothetical is the millions we're losing every day that site sits idle. Ethan met his eyes. What's your point? My point is that you're making decisions above your authority. You report to Ms. Whitmore? Yes, but she reports to this board. And this board has concerns about the direction she's taking based on your recommendations. Then the board can take it up with her. We have. She's resistant to feedback. Maybe because the feedback is wrong. Reeves leaned back in his chair. You're very confident for someone who's been in this position for less than a month. I'm confident in the data. Data can be interpreted many ways. Not when it comes to structural integrity. Either the reinforcements are adequate or they're not. The original assessment said they're not. Someone changed that assessment without addressing the actual problem. And you've decided, unilaterally, that we need to spend millions fixing something that might not even be a real issue. Yes. Reeves studied him for a long moment. Miss Whitmore speaks very highly of you. Says you're the most honest person in this building. She's probably right. Honesty is admirable, Mr. Cole, but it's not the same as wisdom. Sometimes the wise choice is to manage risk, not eliminate it, to balance safety concerns against business realities. Someone already made that choice at Cascadia. They chose business over safety. I'm correcting that mistake. At what cost? Less than what it'll cost if I'm right and we do nothing. Reeves stood. This conversation is over. But understand something. The board is watching. We supported Ms. Whitmore's decision to promote you because we trusted her judgment. But if your crusade starts damaging this company's profitability, that support will evaporate. Noted. One more thing. Ms. Whitmore is young, idealistic. She thinks she can rebuild this company's culture through pure force of will. She's wrong. Corporate culture is built over decades. It doesn't change because one person decides it should. Ethan stood. Maybe it should. He walked out before Reeves could respond. That afternoon, independent structural engineers arrived at the Cascadia site. Victoria had hired the best firm she could find, people with no connection to Whitmore Global, no incentive to downplay problems. Their preliminary report came back Monday morning. Rachel brought it to Ethan's office with a look on her face that told him everything he needed to know. How bad? The original assessment was right. Current reinforcements are inadequate for the seismic risk profile. If a major earthquake hits before proper supports are installed, catastrophic structural failure is likely. Casualties? Depends on timing. If it happens during operational hours with a full crew on site. She didn't finish the sentence. How much to fix it? 22 million, 8 months of additional construction. Ethan called Victoria. She answered on the first ring. The engineer's report came in. And? We need to reinforce 22 million, 8 months. Silence. Send me everything. I'm calling an emergency board meeting for tomorrow. Reeves is going to fight you. Let him. The emergency board meeting happened at 2 p.m. on Tuesday in the largest conference room on 47. 12 board members, Victoria, Thomas Brennan, Sarah Chen, and Ethan. Reeves sat directly across from Victoria, expression neutral but eyes cold. Victoria started. Thank you all for coming on short notice. We have a situation with the Cascadia Port project that requires immediate board approval. She laid out the findings, the falsified assessment, the structural vulnerabilities, the engineer's report. Reeves listened without interrupting. When she finished, he spoke calmly. So you're asking this board to approve spending $22 million to fix a problem that might never materialize. I'm asking you to approve spending $22 million to prevent a disaster that has a documented probability of occurring, based on the opinion of engineers you hired specifically to support your position, based on the opinion of independent structural experts with no stake in this project. Another board member, A woman in her 50s named Patricia Volkov spoke up. What happens if we don't approve the spending? Thomas Brennan cleared his throat. From a legal perspective, we become knowingly liable. If there's a seismic event and the structure fails, the company can be sued for negligence, potentially criminal charges if casualties occur. Only if someone can prove we knew about the risk, Reeves said. We're sitting in a meeting discussing it, Thomas replied. I'd say that constitutes knowledge. Volkov turned to Ethan. Mr. Cole, you're the one who flagged this. Do you genuinely believe the risk is significant enough to justify this expense? Every person in the room looked at him. This was it. The moment where he could hedge, use corporate language, say the risk was worth considering, but the decision was above his pay grade. He thought about the workers who'd be on that port site, about their families, about Sophie asking if the broken thing was getting fixed. Yes, he said, I believe if we don't reinforce that structure and there's a major earthquake, people will die, and will have known it was possible and chosen profit over their lives. The room went very quiet. Reeves leaned forward. That's quite an accusation. It's not an accusation. It's a statement of fact. You're saying anyone who votes against this spending is complicit in potential manslaughter. I'm saying anyone who votes against this is choosing to ignore documented risk because fixing it is expensive. That's not how business works. Maybe it should be. Reeves's face hardened. Miss Whitmore, your protege is overstepping. He's answering questions honestly, Victoria said. That's what I asked him to do. He's grandstanding, using emotional manipulation instead of sound business analysis. Ethan spoke before Victoria could respond. The sound business analysis is in the report. 22 million now versus billions in liability later. The math is straightforward. What's not straightforward is deciding whether saving money is worth risking lives. Volkov raised her hand. I move that we approve the reinforcement spending. Another board member seconded. Reeves called for a vote. 8 in favor, 3 against, 1 abstention. The motion passed. As the meeting broke up, Reeves pulled Ethan aside. You made an enemy today. I made several, probably. I'm serious. You can't talk to board members like that and expect no consequences. What consequences? You going to fire me for telling the truth? No. But I can make your professional life very difficult. I can block promotions, freeze budgets, make sure every project you touch gets extra scrutiny. Do what you have to do. Reeves studied him. You really don't care, do you, about politics or advancement or playing the game? I care about doing my job correctly. That's not enough in this world. It's enough for me. That evening, Ethan picked up Sophie from school and took her to the park. She wanted to swing, so he pushed her while she shrieked with laughter and demanded he push higher. Daddy, did you fix the broken thing today? Part of it, yeah. Good. What part? The part that could hurt people. That's the most important part to fix. Yeah, baby, it is. She jumped off the swing mid-arc and landed hard enough to make Ethan's heart stop. But she popped up grinning. Did you see that? I flew. You definitely flew. Also gave me a heart attack. What's a heart attack? Something that happens when 7-year-olds do dangerous things on playgrounds. She giggled and ran toward the slide. Ethan's phone buzzed. Email from Victoria. Board approved Cascadia reinforcement. Good work. Also, Reeves is going to make your life hell. Be prepared. He typed back. Already prepared. The response came immediately. No, you're not, but we'll deal with it. Sophie appeared at his elbow. Daddy, can we get dinner? What do you want? Tacos? Tacos it is. They went to the taco place Sophie loved, the one with the plastic chairs and the salsa that was too spicy for her, but she tried every time anyway. While they ate, Sophie told him about her day, about how Marcus had gotten in trouble for talking during reading time, about how her teacher had started a class garden, about how she'd gotten picked first for kickball even though she wasn't very good. Normal 7-year-old things. And Ethan realized that this, sitting in a cheap taco place listening to his daughter talk about kickball, this was what he was fighting for. Not corporate integrity or proper risk management or any of the big abstract concepts. He was fighting so Sophie could grow up in a world where people told the truth even when it was hard. Where doing the right thing mattered more than making money. Where someone's father coming home safe from work wasn't dependent on whether fixing safety problems was profitable enough. Daddy, you have the thinking face. Do I? Yeah. It's different from the worry face. The thinking face is when you look far away. I was just thinking about how much I love tacos. Liar. You were thinking about work. Maybe a little. Is the broken thing almost fixed? Getting there. Good. Because I like it when you're happy. I'm happy right now. Good. Me too. Wednesday morning, Ethan arrived at work to find a message from Patricia. Victoria wanted to see him at 8 a.m. He took the elevator to 47. Victoria was at her desk with her reading glasses on, reviewing documents. Sit. He sat. She set down her glasses. The audit. How much longer until you have complete findings? We're through 30 contracts. 17 more to go. Maybe 2 more weeks. And so far? Every contract we've reviewed has issues, some minor, delayed warnings, downplayed concerns, some major like Cascadia. The incentive structure was poisonous. People were rewarded for speed regardless of risk. How many more Cascadias are we looking at? At least 3, maybe 5. Victoria closed her eyes. Cost estimate? Conservative? 60 to 80 million in immediate fixes. Long term, if we're serious about restructuring how we evaluate and execute contracts, we're looking at systemic changes that could impact profitability for years. The board will never approve that. Some of them will. Not enough. She stood and walked to the window. Reeves is already building a coalition. He's arguing that I'm letting idealism destroy the company, that I've empowered you to run roughshod over established business practices. He's not wrong about the second part. She turned. Are you having doubts? No. Are you? Every day. But then I remember that Richard Hale almost destroyed this company, and people like Marcus Webb helped him do it. And I realized that if we don't fix this now, it'll just keep happening. So what do? We finish the audit, document everything, and then we make the case to the board that fixing this is cheaper than dealing with the lawsuits, the disasters, and the destroyed reputation if we don't. And if they don't buy it, Victoria's expression hardened. Then I remind them that I'm still CEO, and that I have the authority to make these changes with or without their approval. That'll start a war. Then we'll fight a war. Ethan's phone buzzed. Text from Sophie's school. Reminder, spring concert tomorrow, 6 p.m. He'd completely forgotten. Victoria saw his face. What? Sophie's spring concert, tomorrow night. So go. I've got the audit review meeting scheduled for 5:30. Reschedule it. Victoria, we're already behind on Cole. Her voice was firm. Reschedule it. Go to your daughter's concert. The audit will still be here Friday. He looked at her, really looked at her. Thank you. Stop thanking me. Just go watch your kid sing off key and be proud of her. Despite everything, Ethan smiled. How'd you know she sings off key? Because all 7-year-olds sing off key. It's a law of nature. Thursday evening, Ethan left work at 5:15 and made it to Sophie's school with 20 minutes to spare. The cafeteria had been converted into a makeshift auditorium, rows of folding chairs facing a small stage decorated with construction paper flowers. He found a seat in the second row. Front row was taken by parents with professional cameras and the kind of enthusiasm that suggested this wasn't their first school concert. Sophie's class performed third. She stood in the back row wearing a paper flower crown that was slightly crooked, singing about springtime and sunshine with complete commitment to every off-key note. She saw Ethan in the audience, and her whole face lit up. She waved. The girl next to her elbowed her and whispered something. Sophie stopped waving but kept smiling. After the concert, parents swarmed the stage taking photos. Ethan waited until the crowd thinned, then found Sophie near the cookies. You came. Of course I came. I promised front row. You were second row. Close enough. Did you see me singing? I saw you. You were great. I forgot some of the words. Nobody noticed. Maddie noticed. She told me after. Well, Maddie's a tattletale, Sophie giggled. Can I have another cookie? You can have 2 cookies. Her eyes went wide. 2? You earned it. That was a very complicated song about spring. They drove home with Sophie recounting every detail of the performance, who forgot their lines, who cried backstage, who threw up from nervousness but still went on stage. At home, after Sophie was asleep, Ethan checked his work email. 43 unread messages. He ignored all of them and went to bed. Friday morning, Rachel knocked on his office door at 8:15. We finished the audit. All 47 contracts? All 47. How bad? She handed him a folder. Read it yourself. Ethan opened the file. The summary was 3 pages long. By the second paragraph, his hands were shaking. Of the 47 major contracts reviewed, 41 showed evidence of suppressed warnings, modified risk assessments, or unauthorized changes made to expedite signing. Total estimated exposure from inadequate risk management, $1.2 billion. $1.2 billion. This can't be right. I triple-checked the numbers. It's right. Ethan called Victoria. She answered immediately. We need to talk. Now. 10 minutes later, he was in her office, laying out the final audit findings. Victoria listened without interrupting. When he finished, she sat very still. $1.2 billion. Conservative estimate. Could be higher. How many require immediate action? 8 contracts need significant modifications or repairs within the next 6 months. Another 15 need attention within the year. Cost? $150 million minimum. Could go higher depending on what the detailed assessments find. Victoria stood and walked to the window. She stayed there for a long time. The board will never approve this. They have to. No, Cole, they don't. They'll argue we're being overly cautious, that we're overreacting, that we're letting one bad deal cloud our judgment about 46 others. But I know the arguments. I've already heard them from Reeves. She turned back. He's calling for a vote of no confidence. Ethan felt the floor drop out. What? He's convinced 6 board members that I'm destroying the company. They want me out. They want someone who'll protect profitability over safety concerns. They can't do that. They can. They have the votes. Unless I can convince 3 of them to change their minds before next week's board meeting. So convince them. With what? Numbers they don't believe? Risk assessments they think are exaggerated? Your audit is thorough, but Reeves will argue you're biased, that you've been on a crusade since the Meridian deal. It's not a crusade, it's data. To us. To them, it's a threat to everything they've built. Ethan sat down heavily. So what do we do? Victoria returned to her desk. We fight. We present the audit findings at the board meeting. We make the case that fixing these problems is essential, and we hope it's enough. And if it's not, then I'm out. And whoever replaces me will bury this audit so deep it'll never see light again. She said it matter-of-factly, but Ethan could see the tension in her shoulders, the fear underneath the control. I'm sorry, he said. This is my fault. If I hadn't... Stop. You did exactly what I asked you to do. You found the truth. That's not your fault. But now you're going to lose your job because of it. Maybe. Or maybe we win. Either way, we did the right thing. She looked at him. That has to be enough. Ethan left her office feeling like he'd been punched. He went back to his desk and stared at the audit report. $1.2 billion. 8 contracts needing immediate attention. 15 more within the year. And a CEO about to lose everything because she'd chosen truth over profit. His phone buzzed. Text from Sophie's after-school program. Mr. Cole, Sophie wants to know if you can pick her up early today. She says it's important. He called the program. They put Sophie on the phone. Daddy? Hey, baby, what's going on? Can you come get me? I want to go to the park. Is everything okay? Yeah, I just miss you. Ethan's chest tightened. I miss you too, sweetheart. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He grabbed his jacket and headed for the elevator. As the doors closed, he saw Martin Chen watching from across the office with an expression that looked like concern. At the park, Sophie ran straight for the swings. Ethan pushed her while she talked about her day, about the garden her class was planting, about how she'd learned to spell photosynthesis, even though she didn't know what it meant. Daddy, are you okay? Yeah, baby. Why? Because you're quiet. You're usually more talky at the park. He stopped pushing. Sophie dragged her feet to slow down, then hopped off and turned to face him. Work stuff, he said. The broken thing? Yeah. Is it fixed yet? Ethan thought about the audit, about Victoria facing a vote of no confidence, about Reeves and the board members who valued profit over safety. I don't know, he said honestly. I'm trying really hard to fix it, but some things are more broken than I thought. Sophie walked over and hugged him. She barely came up to his waist, but her hug was fierce. It's okay if you can't fix it, Daddy. You tried really hard, that's what matters. He knelt down to her level. You know what, baby? You're pretty smart. I know. Teacher says I'm very smart. Teacher's right. They stayed at the park until the sun started going down, until Sophie got tired and asked to go home. On the drive back, she fell asleep in her booster seat, head tilted to the side, Mr. Hopscotch clutched in her arms. Ethan carried her inside and put her to bed without waking her. Then he sat at the kitchen table with his laptop and started preparing for the board meeting. Because maybe Sophie was right. Maybe trying really hard was what mattered. But Ethan wasn't ready to give up yet. The weekend before the board meeting felt like living in the eye of a hurricane. Everything was quiet, but Ethan could feel the storm building around him. He spent Saturday morning at Sophie's soccer game. She played defense and spent most of the time picking dandelions, and Saturday afternoon preparing his presentation while Sophie watched cartoons beside him on the couch. Sunday evening, his phone rang. Victoria, are you ready for tomorrow? As ready as I'll ever be. That's not reassuring. You want me to lie? She was quiet for a moment. No, I hired you because you don't lie. Then no, I'm not ready. I'm terrified. I've never presented to a board before, and I'm about to tell 12 powerful people that their company is built on compromised foundations. I have no idea if they'll listen. Better. At least that's honest. She paused. For what it's worth, I'm terrified too. Really? I'm about to lose my job, Cole. Or keep it and have to fight every decision for the next 5 years. Either way, tomorrow changes everything. We could back down, present a watered-down version, give them something they can accept without feeling threatened. Could you do that? Actually stand up there and present numbers you know are softened? Ethan thought about it, really thought about it. No, me neither. So I guess we're doing this the hard way. Guess so. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be brutal. She hung up. Ethan didn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, running through the presentation in his head, anticipating questions, preparing answers. At 2 a.m., he gave up and went to the kitchen, made coffee, reviewed the numbers again. At 5:30, Sophie appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. Daddy, why are you awake? Couldn't sleep, baby. Big day at work. Is today when you show the board the broken things? Yeah. She climbed into his lap. Are they going to be mad? Probably. But you're going to tell them anyway. Yeah. Good, because that's what brave people do. They tell the truth even when it's scary. Ethan hugged her tight. When did you get so smart? I was born smart. You just keep forgetting. Monday morning arrived with rain and gray skies that matched Ethan's mood perfectly. He dropped Sophie at school, kissed her goodbye, and drove downtown with his hands shaking on the steering wheel. The board meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. Ethan arrived at 8:30 and went straight to his office. Rachel was already there with coffee and a folder. Final numbers, triple-checked. Everything's accurate. Thanks. You okay? Ask me in 4 hours. At 9:45, Patricia called. Ms. Whitmore would like to see you before the meeting. Victoria's office was quiet when Ethan walked in. She stood by the window in a black suit that looked like armor, staring out at the rain. I talked to my father last night. How'd that go? He told me I was throwing away everything he built, that I was naive and idealistic and bound to fail. She turned to face him. Then he said something interesting. He said, You're just like your mother. She always thought integrity mattered more than winning. What happened to your mother? She left when I was 12. Said she couldn't watch him destroy himself chasing money. Last I heard, she was running a nonprofit in Oregon. Victoria smiled slightly. He meant it as an insult, but I took it as a compliment. Good. Cole, if this goes badly today, if they vote me out, I want you to know something. What? This was worth it. Finding the truth. Trying to fix things. Even if we lose, it was worth it. Ethan didn't know what to say to that. At exactly 10 a.m., they walked into the boardroom together. All 12 board members were already seated. Reeves sat at the far end, expression neutral but eyes cold. Volkov sat near the middle, looking concerned. The others were a mix of curiosity and hostility. Victoria took her seat at the head of the table. Ethan sat beside her with his laptop ready. "Thank you all for coming," Victoria began. "As you know, we've spent the last month conducting a comprehensive audit of our major contracts. Mr. Cole is here to present the findings." Reeves spoke immediately. "Before we begin, I'd like to state for the record that this board has serious concerns about the scope and conclusions of this audit. We believe it reflects an overly cautious approach that doesn't align with industry standards." "Noted," Victoria said. "Mr. Cole, proceed." Ethan stood. His hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. "Over the past 4 weeks, my team reviewed 47 major contracts signed in the last 3 years. We analyzed risk assessments, approval processes, and post-signing modifications. What we found was systemic failure of risk management protocols." He pulled up the first slide. Summary statistics. 41 of the 47 contracts showed evidence of suppressed warnings, modified risk assessments, or unauthorized changes. In 8 cases, these modifications created significant safety or financial exposure. In 15 additional cases, they created moderate risk that requires attention. A board member named Harrison, mid-40s, tech background, raised his hand. "Define significant exposure. Potential losses or liabilities exceeding $100 million per contract." The room shifted. People sat up straighter. Reeves cut in. "Those are worst-case scenarios. You're presenting them as probable outcomes." "I'm presenting them as documented risks that weren't properly addressed during contract execution." "According to your interpretation." "According to the original risk assessments that were modified or suppressed." Ethan pulled up the next slide. The Cascadia port example. Original assessment versus modified version. Financial projections showing potential losses from structural failure. In this case, the original environmental assessment identified significant seismic vulnerabilities. Someone revised that assessment to minimize the risk, allowing the project to proceed without adequate reinforcement. Independent engineers have since confirmed the original assessment was accurate. Volkov leaned forward. "What's the cost to fix Cascadia?" $22 million? Already approved by this board. "And the other 7 cases requiring immediate attention?" "Combined cost of approximately $130 million. The number hung in the air like smoke. Harrison spoke up. "That's a massive capital expenditure. What's the alternative?" "The alternative is we accept exposure of approximately $800 million in potential losses, plus catastrophic reputation damage if any of these risks materialize." "If. You're asking us to spend $130 million on ifs. I'm asking you to spend $130 million to address documented vulnerabilities that we know exist." Reeves stood. "This is exactly the problem. Mr. Cole is presenting risk management as if it's binary. Either we eliminate all possible risk or we're negligent. That's not how business works. Risk is inherent in everything we do. The question is whether the risk is proportional to the reward." "And when the risk includes potential casualties?" Ethan asked. "What's the proportional reward for that?" "Don't be dramatic." "I'm not being dramatic. I'm being specific. 3 of these 8 contracts involve infrastructure projects where inadequate safety measures could result in injuries or deaths. That's not drama. That's documented reality." Another board member, older woman named Chen, spoke quietly. "Can you give us an example?" Ethan pulled up the next slide. The Harbor Bridge Expansion Project. Original structural analysis versus approved modifications. This bridge carries approximately 40,000 vehicles daily. The original structural analysis recommended specific load-bearing reinforcements. Those recommendations were removed from the final plan to reduce costs by $12 million. Current structure is adequate for normal traffic conditions, but vulnerable to extreme weather events or seismic activity. "What's the probability of those extreme conditions occurring?" Chen asked. 7% annually in that region. 7% doesn't sound significant. It's significant enough that the original engineers refused to sign off on the modified plan. The project moved forward anyway using different engineers who were willing to approve the changes. The room went completely silent. Volkov turned to Reeves. "Jonathan, did you know about this?" "I knew that the project required structural modifications to stay within budget. That's normal project management. Did you know the original engineers refused to approve those modifications?" Reeves hesitated, just for a second, but everyone saw it. "I knew there were disagreements about engineering specifications. Those disagreements were resolved through proper channels." By finding engineers who would give you the answer you wanted, Ethan said. That's not... It's exactly what happened. The documentation is clear. Original engineering firm said the modifications were unsafe. You hired a second firm that approved them. That's not resolving disagreements. That's shopping for approval. Reeves's face went red. You're making serious accusations. I'm stating facts that are documented in the project files. Victoria spoke for the first time since the presentation began. Jonathan, is this true? It's a mischaracterization of normal business practices. Did you hire a second engineering firm after the first one refused to approve the modifications? Silence. Answer the question. Reeves sat down slowly. Yes, but that doesn't mean... It means we knowingly ignored safety concerns to save money. Victoria's voice was ice. It means we put 40,000 people a day at risk to protect our profit margin. That's an oversimplification. Is it? Cole, what's the cost to properly reinforce the harbor bridge? Ethan checked his notes. 18 million. And if we don't reinforce it, and there's a structural failure during extreme weather? Best case, bridge closure and massive traffic disruption. Worst case, casualties and liabilities in the billions. Victoria looked around the table. Anyone want to argue that 18 million isn't worth spending? No one spoke. For the next hour, Ethan walked through each of the 8 critical contracts. Every time, the pattern was the same. Original assessments identifying risks. Those assessments being modified, suppressed, or ignored. Projects moving forward with inadequate safeguards because fixing the problems would mean delays or cost overruns. By the time he finished, the mood in the room had shifted from hostile to something else. Shame, maybe. Or fear. Harrison spoke first. This is worse than I thought. It's exactly what I've been warning about, Victoria said. We built an incentive structure that rewarded speed over safety, and now we're paying the price. Reeves found his voice. What you're describing would require fundamental restructuring of how we evaluate and execute projects. That's not realistic. It would make us uncompetitive. Would it? Ethan pulled up the final slide. I ran the numbers. If we implement proper risk management protocols, independent reviews, no modifications without engineering approval, transparent documentation of all concerns, it adds approximately 4% to project timelines and 2% to costs. That's significant. It's less significant than the $1.2 billion in exposure we're currently carrying. Volkov turned to Victoria. Is that number real? 1.2 billion? Conservative estimate. Could be higher. And you're proposing we address all of it? Not all at once. We triage. 8 critical contracts get immediate attention. 15 more over the next year. The rest we monitor and address as they come up for renewal or modification. Cost? 150 million over 18 months. The room erupted. Board members talking over each other. Reeves arguing about fiscal responsibility. Harrison demanding to see detailed breakdowns. Chen asking about legal exposure. Victoria let them talk for 2 minutes. Then she stood. Enough. Everyone went quiet. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to vote on whether to approve the proposed expenditures. But first, I want everyone in this room to understand something. She looked directly at Reeves. This isn't about me versus Jonathan. It's not about ideology or business philosophy. It's about whether we're the kind of company that knowingly puts people at risk to protect our bottom line. That's not fair. It's completely fair. We have documented evidence that multiple projects moved forward with inadequate safety measures. We have evidence that warnings were suppressed, assessments were modified, and engineers were replaced when they wouldn't give us the answers we wanted. That's not business. That's negligence. Reeves stood. You're being dramatic. Every company manages risk. Every company makes cost-benefit analyses. And when the cost is human lives, what's the benefit that makes that acceptable? You're presenting false choices. Am I? Cole, pull up the casualty projections. Ethan had hoped they wouldn't get to this slide, but he pulled it up. Statistical models showing potential casualties if critical infrastructure failures occurred, numbers ranging from dozens to hundreds depending on the scenario. The room went dead silent. Chen's voice was barely a whisper. Those are people. Yes, Victoria said. Those are people. People who drive across bridges we didn't properly reinforce. People who work in ports we didn't adequately secure. People whose safety we compromise to save money. Reeves tried one more time. This is emotional manipulation. You're using worst-case scenarios to... Jonathan, shut up. Chen's voice was sharp. I've heard enough. She turned to Victoria. I move that we approve the proposed expenditures. All of them. Immediately. Second, Harrison said. Reeves looked around the table, seeing his support evaporating. You're making a mistake. This will damage our profitability for years. Good, Volkov said. Maybe we should be less profitable if being profitable means cutting corners on safety. Victoria called for a vote. 10 in favor, 2 against. The motion passed. Reeves stood slowly. I want it on record that I oppose this decision. Noted, Victoria said. Anything else? Yes. I'm resigning from this board effective immediately. I won't be part of a company that prioritizes fear over sound business judgment. Your resignation is accepted. Reeves gathered his things and walked out. The door closed behind him with a quiet click that felt louder than a slam. Victoria sat down. Anyone else want to resign? No one moved. Good. Then let's get to work. The meeting continued for another hour, working through implementation details, timelines, oversight committees. Ethan answered technical questions, clarified projections, explained risk models. By the time it ended at 1:30, he felt like he'd run a marathon. As board members filed out, several stopped to shake his hand, to thank him, to tell him he'd done important work. Chen lingered. Mr. Cole, I owe you an apology. I should have asked harder questions months ago. I should have looked deeper. You're asking them now. That's what matters. Still, thank you for not backing down. When the room was empty except for Victoria and Ethan, she walked over to where he was packing up his laptop. We won. Yeah. You don't sound happy about it. I'm relieved. That's different than happy. She sat down in one of the board chairs, suddenly looking exhausted. Reeves is going to make noise. Tell anyone who'll listen that I'm destroying the company. Let him. The financial media will pick it up. Investors will get nervous. Stock price might take a hit. It'll recover. You sound confident. I am. Because we just proved that doing the right thing doesn't have to destroy the company. It just costs money. And money we can make back. Victoria smiled slightly. When did you get so wise? I'm not wise. I'm just tired of watching people lie. His phone buzzed. Text from Sophie's school. Mr. Cole, Sophie wants to know if you can have lunch with her tomorrow. It's Dads and Donuts Day. He showed Victoria the message. Go, she said. You've earned donuts with your daughter. I have work. Cole, you just saved this company from imploding. I think you can take 2 hours for donuts. He typed back to the school. I'll be there. That evening, Ethan picked up Sophie and took her to the good pizza place. Their booth, their usual order. How was your day, Daddy? Complicated, but good. Did you tell the board about the broken things? Yeah, baby, I did. Were they mad? Some of them were, but most of them listened. And they agreed to fix the problems. So the broken thing is getting fixed? Yeah, it's getting fixed. Sophie smiled. I'm proud of you. Ethan's throat tightened. Thanks, sweetheart. You're welcome. Can I have extra cheese? You can have whatever you want. A month later, Victoria called Ethan to her office. He'd been expecting it. There were always consequences after something like this, even when you won. But when he walked in, she was smiling. The Cascadia port reinforcement is complete, passed all inspections, sites reopening next week. That's good. Harbor Bridge reinforcement starts Monday. Full structural upgrade. Should be done in 6 months. Also good. And the other 6 critical contracts are all in remediation. We're ahead of schedule and under budget. Ethan sat down. Why do I feel like there's a but coming? No but. Just a question. She slid a document across the desk. How would you feel about becoming Chief Risk Officer? He blinked. What? C-suite position. You'd oversee all risk management across the company. Report directly to me. Full authority to halt any project that doesn't meet safety standards. Victoria, I've been a director for 6 weeks. And in those 6 weeks, you've done more to protect this company than most executives do in their entire careers. That's not... Cole, stop arguing. Do you want the job or not? He thought about it, really thought about it. C-suite meant more responsibility, more pressure, more visibility. It meant being in the room where decisions got made, where he could actually prevent problems instead of just flagging them. It also meant more time away from Sophie, more late nights, more stress. What are the hours like? Victoria smiled. Whatever hours you need them to be. You want to leave at 5:30 every day to pick up your daughter? Leave. You want to work from home when she's sick? Work from home. The only requirement is that you keep doing what you've been doing, telling the truth even when it's inconvenient. That's a pretty low bar. You'd be surprised. Ethan looked at the offer letter. The salary was almost double what he was making now. The benefits package included premium health insurance, the kind that would cover Sophie's medication without him having to choose between that and groceries. Can I think about it? You have until tomorrow. That night, after Sophie was asleep, Ethan sat at his kitchen table with the offer letter in front of him. He thought about the last 2 months, about standing in that conference room while Victoria humiliated him, about bringing evidence that could have ended his career, about the Cascadia port and the harbor bridge and all the other broken things that were finally getting fixed. He thought about Richard Hale's email. You think you're a hero. You're not. Maybe Richard was right. Ethan wasn't a hero. He was just a single father who'd gotten tired of watching people make dangerous decisions because it was profitable. But maybe that was enough. His phone rang. Martin Chen. Dude, did Victoria really offer you CRO? How do you know about that? Everyone knows. Patricia told someone who told someone. The whole building's talking about it. Great. Are you going to take it? I don't know. Why not? It's a huge promotion. Massive salary bump. You'd be in the executive team. Because I don't want to be an executive. I want to do my job and take care of my daughter. Martin was quiet for a moment. You know what's funny? That's exactly why you'd be good at it. Because you don't want it for the power or the prestige. You just want to fix things. That's not funny. That's depressing. Take the job, man. The company needs people like you at the top. People who actually give a damn. After Martin hung up, Ethan pulled out his phone and looked at his photos. Most recent was from Sophie's spring concert. She was mid-song, paper flower crown, crooked, completely off-key, and completely happy. He thought about her asking if the broken thing was getting fixed, about her saying that trying really hard was what mattered. He signed the offer letter. The next morning, he dropped it on Victoria's desk. She looked at the signature and smiled. Good choice. We'll see. One more thing. The board approved something else yesterday. What? She handed him another document. Board resolution establishing the coal protocol, mandatory independent risk review for all major contracts, with final approval authority residing with the chief risk officer. They named it after you. Ethan stared at the document. This gives me authority to override executive decisions. Yes, people are going to hate that. People already hate it, but they'll learn to live with it. She stood and walked to the window. Things are changing here, Cole. Slowly. But they're changing. And it started because one risk analyst refused to stay quiet when everyone told him to. I didn't do it alone. No, but you did it first. 6 months later, Ethan sat in his new office, corner space, 47th floor, view of the entire city, reviewing the quarterly risk assessment. The numbers looked good, better than good. 0 critical violations, 3 minor issues flagged and addressed before they became problems. Every major contract on schedule and within safety parameters. His phone buzzed. Text from Sophie's school. Parent-teacher conference next Tuesday. Can you make 4 p.m.? He checked his calendar. Executive strategy meeting scheduled for 3:30. He moved the meeting to 2 and typed back. I'll be there. That evening, he picked up Sophie from her after-school art class. She ran out holding a painting of what appeared to be either a sunset or possibly an explosion. With 7-year-old art, it was hard to tell. Do you like it? I love it. What is it? It's a sunset over the ocean, see? That's the sun, and that's the water, and those are birds. Ah, I see it now. You didn't see it before? I saw it. I was just making sure you saw it too. She rolled her eyes. Daddy, you're weird. Thank you. In the car, Sophie was quiet for a while. Then, Marcus says his dad is really important. He's a dentist. Dentists are very important. Are you important? Ethan thought about the question. About the coal protocol. About the 8 critical contracts that were now safe. About the Cascadia port that wouldn't collapse during an earthquake. about the harbor bridge that could withstand extreme weather. "I fix broken things," he said. "I guess that's important." "It is important. Fixing things is really important." "Thanks, baby." "You're welcome. Can we get ice cream?" "It's Monday." "So?" "So ice cream is a weekend thing. But you're important now. Important people can have ice cream on Monday." Despite everything, Ethan laughed. "That's flawless logic. Ice cream it is." They went to the ice cream place near their apartment. Sophie got chocolate chip. Ethan got vanilla because he still didn't understand mix-ins. As they sat at one of the small tables eating their ice cream, Sophie swinging her legs because they didn't quite reach the floor, Ethan realized something. This was what winning looked like. Not the promotion or the salary or the corner office. Not the Cole protocol or the board approval or Victoria's gratitude. This. Sitting in a cheap ice cream place on a Monday evening with his daughter, knowing that the broken things were getting fixed and that tomorrow he'd go back to work and keep fixing them. Because that's what honest people did. They showed up. They told the truth. They fixed what was broken even when it was hard. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, the truth was enough. Sophie looked up at him, chocolate chip ice cream on her nose. "Daddy, you have the happy face." "Do I?" "Yeah. It's different than the worry face or the thinking face. It's the happy face." "I am happy." "Good. Me too." She went back to her ice cream. Ethan pulled out his phone and took a picture. Sophie mid-bite, ice cream on her nose, paper flower crown from last month's concert still somehow in her backpack and visible behind her. This was the moment that mattered, not the boardroom victories or the audit findings or the contracts getting fixed. This, right here. His daughter happy and safe and eating ice cream on a Monday because her father was important enough to break the rules sometimes. That evening, after Sophie was asleep, Ethan's phone buzzed. Email from Victoria. Meridian just signed a 3-year extension. Dr. Chen specifically requested you oversee the risk assessment. Said you're the only person she trusts. Congratulations, you're officially invaluable. VW. He set the phone down and smiled. A year ago, he'd been invisible. A risk analyst nobody remembered existed. A single father barely holding his life together. Now he was chief risk officer. He had the Cole protocol. He had Victoria's trust and the board's grudging respect, and Dr. Chen specifically requesting his oversight. He'd won. But more importantly, he'd taught his daughter something she'd carry forever, that telling the truth mattered, that doing the right thing was worth the cost, that standing up when everyone else sat down wasn't naive or idealistic or stupid. It was just necessary. His phone buzzed again, text from an unknown number. He almost deleted it without reading. But something made him look. "Mr. Cole, you were right about Cascadia. I was wrong. That's all I wanted to say. Gregory Foster." Ethan stared at the message for a long moment, then he deleted it without responding. Some people learned, some people didn't, but the work continued either way. He closed his laptop and went to bed. Tomorrow there would be more contracts to review, more risks to assess, more problems to fix. But tonight, he'd have vanilla ice cream on a Monday, and a daughter who thought he was important, and a job that finally felt like it meant something. And for a single father who'd spent years just trying to survive, that felt like enough. That felt like everything. 3 years later, Ethan stood at the back of a conference room watching a new team of analysts present their first major audit. They were nervous. You could see it in their hands, and the way they kept glancing at their notes. But their findings were solid. Victoria sat at the head of the table, asking sharp questions, pushing them to defend their conclusions. The analysts held their ground, presented their evidence, refused to back down when executives challenged their interpretations. Ethan smiled. After the meeting, one of the analysts, a young woman named Maya who reminded him of Rachel, approached him. "Was I okay? I felt like I talked too fast." "You were fine. You presented facts. You stood your ground. That's all that matters. Mr. Reeves' replacement tried to intimidate me. I noticed. You didn't let him. Because I remembered what you said in training. The data doesn't care about politics." "Exactly." She hesitated. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "When you first started doing this, when you first challenged the executives, were you scared?" Ethan thought back to that day 3 years ago, standing in the conference room with Sophie waiting outside, everyone staring at him like he was crazy, Victoria using his daughter against him. Terrified, he said honestly. But you did it anyway. Yeah, because someone had to. Maya nodded slowly. That's what I thought. Thanks. She walked away. Ethan's phone buzzed. Text from Sophie's middle school. She was 10 now somehow. When had that happened? Reminder, science fair tomorrow, 6 p.m. Sophie is presenting her volcano project. He typed back, front row. I promise. Victoria appeared at his elbow. Your team did good work today. They did. Maya's going to be excellent. She's got that same stubborn streak you have. Is that a compliment? It's an observation. Victoria smiled. You're leaving early tomorrow for the science fair? How do you know about that? Because Patricia manages your calendar, and she told me. Also because you've been talking about Sophie's volcano project for 3 weeks. It's a very impressive volcano. I'm sure it is. Go, watch it explode, take pictures. I have the risk committee meeting at 5:30. Cole, I'll handle it. Go watch your daughter's volcano. The next evening, Ethan sat in the middle school cafeteria surrounded by cardboard displays and nervous kids. Sophie's volcano sat on the table in front of her, painted to look like an actual mountain, complete with tiny trees made from pipe cleaners. Okay, Daddy, watch this. She poured vinegar into the top. The volcano erupted in a fountain of red foam. Other parents applauded politely. Sophie beamed. Did you see? I saw. That was amazing. I know. I added extra baking soda for dramatic effect. Very dramatic. A judge came by to ask Sophie about her project. She explained the chemical reaction with complete confidence, using words like exothermic and carbonic acid that she definitely learned specifically for this presentation. The judge smiled and moved on. Do you think I'll win? I think you built a volcano that actually erupted. That's already winning. But do you think I'll get a ribbon? Maybe, but even if you don't, I'm proud of you. She hugged him. Thanks, Daddy. As they walked to the car later, Sophie did get a ribbon, 3rd place, which she insisted was better than 1st because 3rd place means you tried really hard but didn't show off. Ethan's phone rang. Martin Chen. Hey man, you see the news? What news? Whitmore Global just got named one of the top 50 safest companies to work for. Industry publication just released the rankings. Ethan stopped walking. Seriously? Dead serious. They specifically cited your risk management protocols. Said you guys set a new industry standard. Huh? That's all you've got? This is huge. I mean, it's good, but it's just us doing our jobs correctly. Martin laughed. That's exactly why it's huge, because most companies don't. After hanging up, Ethan looked at Sophie. Guess what? What? My company just got ranked as one of the safest places to work. Is that good? Yeah, baby, that's really good. Did you do that? I helped. Cool. Can we get ice cream to celebrate? It's Tuesday. So, your company is safe. That deserves ice cream. You know what? You're absolutely right. They got ice cream, chocolate chip for Sophie, vanilla for Ethan, because some things never changed. As they sat in their usual spot, Sophie swinging her legs and talking about volcanoes and chemical reactions, and how Marcus got 1st place but his volcano didn't even erupt properly, Ethan realized something. This was the legacy that mattered. Not the rankings or the protocols or the corner office, not the salary or the respect or the Cole protocol that now existed in textbooks as a case study in corporate risk management. This. Teaching his daughter that doing the right thing had value, that telling the truth mattered, that standing up when it was hard was worth it. Because someday Sophie would face her own impossible choice, her own moment where staying silent would be easier than speaking up, her own conference room full of people telling her she was wrong. And maybe, just maybe, she'd remember her father. Remember how he'd risked everything to tell the truth. Remember that it had been scary and hard and worth it. Maybe she'd stand up anyway. That was the real win. Not changing a company, changing a person. Teaching one little girl that integrity wasn't just a word people said in meetings. It was a choice you made every single day, even when it cost you. Especially when it cost you. Sophie looked up at him, ice cream on her nose again because she never learned. Daddy, Why are you staring at me? Just thinking about how proud I am of you. Because of the volcano? Because of everything. She smiled. I'm proud of you too. You fix broken things and make them safe. That's important. Thanks, baby. You're welcome. Can I have your cherry? You can have my cherry. She plucked it off his ice cream with her fingers and popped it in her mouth. And Ethan thought, this moment right here, this is what I fought for. Not the billion-dollar deals or the safety rankings or the corporate restructuring. This, my daughter, safe and happy and learning that doing the right thing matters. Everything else was just noise. The real victory was sitting across from him with ice cream on her nose and a third-place ribbon in her backpack. And that was enough. That was everything.